Hello and welcome to Spurs Kings TV. It is Tuesday. It is that time. You know what time it is. It is Ashmatic Analysis. Ash, you well?
Yes. Yes, bro. I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm good. How you doing, man?
All good. No Spurs, so all good.
Yeah, refreshed, relaxed. I feel like I'm on holiday, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you. But
feels like
yeah,
it
man, I'm calm.
feels like the summer transfer window started again.
100%, 100%. Bro, can you see the screen? I cannot see the screen. Is it me that's moving mad, or
Yeah,
do I
if
need to log out?
you mean go back out and come back in, and it
Let
will
me log out. You
yeah
bring in a guest. I'll be
yeah
back. Let me get
reload,
some tea.
reload. All right, let me bring out the first guest while we're at it. A big welcome, making his debut on the channel. Drew Zilla, are you well?
Doing well, my friend. Doing well. I really appreciate you having me on. How you doing, Marlon? Good to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you as well. I'm doing well. I'm doing well as always. No Spurs. It was a good week. It's a good week,
Right.
as they say.
Yeah, I'm as refreshed as they are, hopefully. So yeah, I'm trying to get myself ready for Thursday, just like these boys should be.
Hopefully. Look, we've got players back. We've got players back. So hopefully.
Right.
Let me see if the next guest, if they can hear us, can they see us? Josh, are you well?
Lads, I can't hear you.
You cannot hear me.
I can't hear you. Let me check.
Come out and come back in. Come out and come back in. Ash is having trouble too. As long as Drew Zilla's not having problems, we're good.
Yeah, no, I can hear everybody. I can hear you as well, Josh. I can hear you. So
we can hear you, Josh. You can't hear us.
out and back in. It's like the hokey pokey.
Are you good now, Ash? Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, cool.
You can see us now.
Yeah. We're back.
Josh can't hear us. He's got to give it permissions, as they say. Got to give it permissions. So let's start. Do you know what? We obviously didn't stream for last week. We missed the City game. So we're gonna start. We'll quickly start with City. We'll kind of gloss over it, but we'll go into it. Ash, straight away, the biggest question mark that's come out all week was, especially with the break, should he have rested Kulu, Son, and Spence, or did we have enough days to wait? Because now that Kulusevski's injured, was there any point?
Yeah, I think most people knew that Kulu was in that kind of red zone, and he'd been like for the last 5 to 6 games, in my opinion, he hadn't looked quite himself. He didn't look quite sharp.
Yeah,
and so he needed rotation badly. However, Johnson wasn't quite fit yet, and in the Ipswich game, I thought there might be a chance where he might get rested because Johnson was back fit. It was his first start, and I thought maybe you start Maddison in that game because I thought Maddison was looking all right. So there was question marks there in terms of rotation for Kulu, if that makes sense. And when you look to Spence, who played really well, and I think the last 4 to 5 games, he had been getting man of the match. I just kept seeing with the little Premier League thing, like posing up. And I was really proud as a fan. And obviously, I like the comeback story. Comeback kid, bring it all day. That's what Spurs are about. So, yeah, like it was crazy. And then obviously, he was dropped out. And obviously, we had concerns because we knew Doku. We saw what he did to Trent. You know what I'm saying? He's like England number 1. So Porro hadn't been playing well defensively, in my opinion, this season. That's where we've been getting caught out. That right hand side's been targeted. And to swap him out and then to put in to put Porro in and not have include Jed Spence, who's been starting, by the way, it didn't really sit well. So I think that was the biggest hoo-ha amongst fans. So and obviously the goal. Oh, we'll get into it, man. We'll get into it. But I think Kulusevski should have been rested, and Jed Spence should have started, essentially. But
Sonny?
What do I know? I'm not the manager in it, so.
What about Sonny?
Oh, Sonny, up top. Obviously, Sonny's a weird one. He's been having an up and down season, and against Man City, he normally shows up, right? But he's been having a weird season. He's performing against the lower teams, in my opinion, and then the bigger ones, we haven't seen him. Actually, let me start again. Let me not say that because I'm just talking off the top of my head. But of late, I felt Son had been doing well against the lesser oppositions and the bigger ones when we needed him to step up, we didn't really see him. So I think that Son one's really debatable, in my opinion. He could have started, he could have not started. Odobert, people wanted to see him. Do you know what I mean? They wanted to see the kid, give him a chance. Was City the right game? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I'm not too sure.
Drew, let me bring you into it. Starting lineup. It's the biggest debate. Not even the result or the VAR. The biggest debate for the whole week has been, should he have started Spence?
Right.
Should Son and Kulu been dropped? Well, rested, as they say, rested.
Right.
What was your opinions on it? I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but how were you feeling before the game when you saw that lineup?
I can understand. I feel like, and I hate getting splinters, but I can kind of see both sides because I understand the need to get some minutes into some players' legs.
Yeah.
Because for me, this last third of the season, however long we've got, personally, as much as I obviously want to see the push in Europe, but I think just from being a dignified Spurs fan and just maybe being able to put my chin up a little bit, I would like to see some sort of push in the league, so long as it wasn't detrimental to the squad. But I mean, we're talking about, professional footballers who, by all accounts, should be able to, now they're coming back from injury, be able to put some minutes into their legs. So without wanting to force them into another injury, I do expect them all to be giving it absolutely everything. So with that being said, with the track record with Manchester City, with how well Spencer's doing, I would have liked to have maybe seen at least 2 out of the 3 get the nod, given that we had this amount of time to recover. So my opinion is, if you're going to play Johnson, you need to have Sonny on the other side. And if you're going to play Kulu, you can get away with not necessarily having Sonny on the other side. So for me, it's like an and/or. I'm going to play Spence and Sonny from the start, probably.
Yeah.
And then I would have likely moved Spence over to right back and brought Udogie on for the second half or after kind of 60 minutes or so. Given the fact that we've kind of had Manchester City's number for a little while, given the fact that I think Sonny probably would have been up for it. I mean, he looked kind of fresh when he came on, even though the first touch wasn't, dazzling. I can see the need to get minutes in players' legs, but I think he missed a trick. I would have liked to. I think the second half showed that we were good for at least a point in that game, in my opinion. But the chips fall where they fall, and it's another loss at home, which is it's a gut punch, unfortunately.
Drew, just on that, do you think that obviously a lot of people are saying Europa, we must focus on that, and they're not too worried about league games at the moment? Do you feel differently where if we got something from Man City, for example, we could have finished like slightly higher up? Because some people are completely dismissing the league.
I this is the thing, Ash. And I think we missed a trick last year as well when we were fart-arsing and fussing about the Arsenal result and the Manchester City result. And if we take points here, we could gift them that there. I don't care about any other team but my team, I don't care about any other club other than my club. So for me, you've got a constant. That's your bread and butter. We should be looking to finish as high up as we can, just given the fact that people could win cups, love it or hate it. There could be English teams winning cups, which could drop European places down. If we miss out on Europe because of a couple of points, we're going to be kicking ourselves. And I don't pick and choose the trophies that I could potentially win. Like we all wanted the Carabao Cup when we were in the semi-final, and then all of a sudden we're out of the Carabao Cup, and it's like, well, I didn't really want that one anyway. I don't think you can pick and choose silverware. I think if we were to push in the league, and if we got Europa Conference, then so be it. It's a chance for youngsters to get more minutes next year, while the first team or first 15 concentrate on bigger things.
But just on that as well, because we had a lot of injuries this season, because we were playing 2 games a week.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think going back to 2 games a week, are we going to be able to handle that? So, for example, supposing we did win the Europa, I know I'm fast forwarding, Marlon,
Right.
But imagine we won Europa, and then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden we got into Champions League.
Right.
What would you expect the likelihood that youngsters would be blooded in or played, or do you think the club would change their approach in terms of like transfer policy
I
potentially,
mean,
or
I
nah?
I mean, I would hope so. I mean, to be honest with you, Ash, I mean, mine's just quickly, I guess, my stance on the. I think the squad itself has been horribly mismanaged for the better part of. I mean, if we're honest, sort of 5 or 6 years, it's been allowed to, become diluted in areas. It's become derelict in others. Like the mismanagement of even just going back to last year. I personally don't believe that Ange was backed as well as he should have been. We got 2 spaces in the Premier League squad that say so. It would have been nothing to have brought in another couple of players that could have bolstered out that squad. The problem I've got with the players that we bought is that if you look at all of those players, while I've got absolutely no problem with the likes of purchasing your Bergvals or your Bergvals, however you want to pronounce it, and your Archie Grays, we didn't purchase anybody that had 55, 60 games, 65 games in their legs. We didn't have anybody with any kind of European pedigree. So when you look at it like that, I think to myself, the board, the club, whoever it is, missed a trick not getting a couple of players in that have somewhat been there and done it and do have European football in their legs, because I think that would have made a huge difference. That would have, it would have enabled, I think, for better rotation. And there is an argument that obviously, Ange isn't particularly good at that anyway. But I think at the very beginning of the season, I think maybe he was a little bit hesitant to rotate with the players that he had, to the point where we got ourselves into a position where now the argument is he didn't have a choice. I mean, we are where we are. That kind of just is what it is, because you can't change, the past. But I think if we, Ash, I will touch wood, whatever I've got to touch. If we win that cup and we get into the Champions League, it will be a disgrace if the board don't go out and actually, because that's where they want to be. So if they want to be there,
The thing
they've
is,
got to have the intention to stay there.
we've been there before, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
Josh, can you hear me as well? Josh, are you there?
You there, Josh?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Yeah,
What's going on, guys?
Big up. No, I'll throw it into you, Josh, real quick, because we've been in the Champions League before, especially under Conte. Conte's a win now manager, and you look at the players we brought in under him. Were they Champions League quality? Like, like under Ange,
Bro, you can't win anything in the Champions League or in the latter rounds of Champions League with Eric Dyer, Sanchez, and Co at the back. Do you know what I mean? It starts at the back for me, and you can't win anything with those guys, man. So he was already handicapped with Ben Davis and those guys. If you gave him Romero, you gave him Mickey Van der Vee, you gave him even Danso. Do you know what I mean? He would have better players, more options. So how can we expect a manager to go and play in the big games with a weak hand?
so
That's what I would say, man. And I ain't even started on the midfield.
But what I'm saying is, Ange obviously came out season after season saying that all the players that come through this club, it's on me, innit? Like, there's no players that I don't sign off on. He's not once said that he's not happy. Like Poch came out and he clearly said, I want to be brave. I'm hoping the club can be brave too. I can't remember the exact quote, but he was like, not the furniture one. It was the one before the furniture, because the furniture one was towards the end. But it was another quote. He came out before the Champions League, and he was like, I think we finished second or third, and he came out and he was talking about, I'm a brave manager. and I'm hoping that this club needs to be. We need to refresh the players coming in, and I'm hoping that we can be brave, and I'm hoping the club can match that ambition. Blah blah blah. And I think after that, the replacement for Dembele was something like Sissoko.
Yeah, and he was expensive, as well. That's the ironic thing about that. That was a £40 million signing, so the money was put out there. Do you know what I mean? It's just they just probably bought. I don't know if he wanted him. Who knows if he wanted Sissoko? I mean, he was playing well for Newcastle. He was doing all right for France. But what I would say is, if you're in the Champions League final, or you've got to the Champions League final, you're competing for the league. You've got stock out there. You've got reputation, so you can call the big shots. Ange ain't got no stock out there, so he's just going to say what his employers tell him to say. Why would he rock the boat if he himself is not an established manager yet properly in the Premier League? Poch was. So Poch could be fed up. And Poch knew his phone was ringing, saying, listen, come here, come here. But who's ringing Ange's phone right now? So whilst his stock's low, of course he's going to nod his head. But when his stock goes high, he's probably going to start calling shots as well, saying, look, I ain't got this, I ain't got that. We sold him, or whatever it is, wages, too many youngsters, not enough experience. In fact, in the first half of the season, in some of those interviews, he was talking about experience, saying we need to drizzle experience on this squad because you can't do it with youngsters. You remember him saying that? I think it was about October, maybe, one of the interviews after a game. He said, we do need to mix it up with experience. So there you go. That's him already giving a few signs to the fans that if we don't go and sign someone on 170, 180 grand a week, someone decent, then these youngsters can't do it on their own. And we know, you tell me a team that's won anything with youngsters, and listen, I'll bow my hat down to you, but I don't think you win anything with youngsters, really. Do you know what I mean?
Not even the United team won anything with youngsters. They had a mix of old heads and then the class of 92. And everyone always used that quote. But when you actually look at Man United's squad at the time, they had about 6 or 7 players of quality surrounding them. And even they didn't win stuff with youngsters.
So Marlon, would you say that Ange hasn't been backed as well then? You're saying...
I said that from day dot.
If we go through the signings, though, we go through it. Like, he's had 2 goalkeepers, Vicario and Kingsky. He's had 2 goalkeepers. He's had
the 2 he didn't want.
It's okay, and then we've had Mickey van der Ven, obviously centre back.
Mickey van der Ven he wanted, yeah. But again, second choice, weren't his first.
And so, who was the first choice?
Tapsoba,
right?
yeah.
Tapsoba was the first choice.
And Raya was his first choice for goalkeeper as well. So, when you start looking at things, let's take this summer. He wanted Gallagher, Neto, and Solanke. He only got one of the 3.
He was never getting Gallagher, though. Really,
I get it, but looking at the Sassy deal, Chelsea accepted that. So that whole point of Spurs and Chelsea don't do negotiate with each other is now out the window because.
So what would it be for him to say that Ange actually got backed in the seasons coming through? Like, what would you say if he was to stay this summer? Anyone can answer, by the way. It's a free role, but what would have to be like? Would it be a left back? Would it be a left-sided centre back? Would it be the DM role that everyone's been screaming for? And then would that be like the crucial player that fixed his season? Because a lot of people are saying injuries. That's the reason where he is. That's the reason why we're so low on the table. Is there a case to argue that if he didn't have the injuries, we would be in that a top 6 or top 4? Because what is everyone's expectation of Ange in the second season? Where should Spurs be in the second season?
I've got a question on top of that. If the injuries never happened and the inconsistent results still happened, would Ange have been sacked by now?
Okay. I'm coming in hot on this one.
I mean, that's one of those, if my auntie had balls, she'd be my uncle kind of thing. I mean,
no.
It's I personally
saved
probably
by the injuries.
I think if he'd have had, because I think the expectation is, if he'd have had a full squad to work with, and he'd have only maybe had 2-3 injuries, and we were in the position that we were in, and we're floating 14th, 15th. Then you maybe have to ask questions. But I'm a firm believer. There's a really interesting, a really nice tool that you can use. There's a website, Transfer Market, and if you click on a player, you can click on their career, and you can basically highlight any point in their career, any team that they've played for, and you can isolate the teammates that they've played with and how many times they've played with them. And barring Son and Ben Davies, who have maybe got and we're talking Premier League appearances, they've maybe got 187 appearances together over the period of time that they've been with the club. And then you've got Kulusevski, who's got 100 appearances with Sonny. And then you're down into 60s and 70s. If you isolate Van de Ven and Romero, I think they've only actually played 36 times in the Premier League over what, two seasons?
Yeah.
So I just think, and this isn't just pairings. This is across the pitch, because we've had 30 players in and out of the club in the last 2 years or the last 3 transfer windows, compared to 14 or 15 that Liverpool have had, and I think the 14 or 15 or 16 that Manchester City have had. So I just think we're so, and I've used this term, embryonic. We are a baby bird compared to some of the teams that we are comparing ourselves to. And I just think that given more time, my hope would be that given more time and given more playing experience between the relationships of players on the field, I would expect that we would be top 6. And I would certainly have, if we had a full squad over the last 18 months and we were still where we were, I would maybe kind of have more questions than I currently do.
Okay. As kind of boys.
Big up, Jay.
See, my problem with this is, as a man of logic, I have no definitive end landing point with Ange at the moment. It's not clear either way to me. Issue I have sometimes is, I think about when we got the injuries, right? And I think to myself, right, if we had a different manager across those games, how many more points would we have? Right? And so I said to myself, okay, maybe we'd have 6 more points or something. Yeah. So I think sometimes when people use that as a starting point for this discussion, they negate some of the, not inconsistent, but the form prior to that, which wasn't potentially, hitting it out the park. We would already fallen off the pace to kind of challenge right at the tippy top of the league. And that's the point that people start saying, but the injuries. But I'm almost saying, well, that's a difficult one because our underlying numbers up to that point were pretty good. But the points total didn't reflect that. So it's constantly checks and balances with it. For me, I speak to a lot of the Anjin people. And I'm not saying I'm Ange out, by the way, but I speak to a lot of the Anjin people. And you got to be very careful. Got to be very careful about it.
Jay, you sound very agile at the moment.
No, it's not. It's not that. It's just. It's I just don't know what. It's almost to be truly Anjin at the moment, you have to be without expectations of the club. That's essentially what you have to be.
Right? I get that. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's wrong to give him a pass because of the injuries, but I am saying it is having expectations, then saying that you're going to stop the process with Ange, and then people are saying that, well, you can't keep stopping and starting, but then also it's at what point do you say, okay, this is below what I thought would be acceptable? When do you start lowering the levels that are acceptable because of the context of what's happening? I remember last season, United had so many injuries in their defense. So many. Yeah. They were playing all sorts of centre backs. I was seeing FM regens stepping onto the pitch. Yeah. Playing for them. Yeah. Nobody cared. Nobody said, wow, United are 8th because all of these injuries, really. They were just Ten Hag doesn't know what he's doing. He's out of his depth. He's crazy. And for Ten Hag to keep his job, he had to win the FA Cup. Now, to me, I feel like we've done worse than United did last season. Yeah. And I believe even though you might see positivity and 3 wins out of the last 4, things like that, it's arguable to me that we should have a similar level of criteria for Ange to have his job next season. Because the one thing to me is almost like, do you think this guy is revolutionary? Like, do you think what we're doing here is revolutionary? Like, do you think there's no one else in world football that can do this? There's lots of good managers in world football. So this is where I'm at the moment. I'm not saying he should lose his job, but I think that based on the season, he's been dealt a bad hand. And what we've learned from Ange is that he's maybe not played that hand as well as he could have. And this is Tottenham Hotspur. You are always going to have a bad hand, baby. That's how we roll over here. So if you've shown me when you've got a bad hand that you can struggle, that doesn't fill me with confidence for the times we're going to get bad hands in the future. You're nearly 60 years old, man. They do say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but that's my thought process. I appreciate I don't have a definitive decision at the end of it, but those are the ramblings of me.
Jay, you do, but you're not going to say it. You're literally saying if they basically when the injury, and this is the question I've been asking everybody who's Ange in, and I'll ask this question, and I'm not even Ange. I've always said, okay, you've got injuries in year 1, didn't cope. You've got injuries in year 2, didn't cope. So I'm going to sit there and say to you, I'm going to guarantee there's going to be injuries in year 3. Do you trust Ange to take you through those injuries in year 3? And I don't think no one has given me an answer on that because they usually just go, no, not really. So that really gives you your answer to how you really feel about Ange for next season, whether he's going to take this club forward, because the one thing I can guarantee you next season is injuries.
Yeah.
They're going to happen.
Yeah, so but this is, but like you look at it like and you say like the league, like you look at Villa.
Yeah.
Where are Villa right now? I think Villa are 10th.
10th, yeah.
Yeah,
10th. Villa are 10th.
But
Nobody talking about Villa being 10th.
No,
Yeah?
and the strangest thing is our form was very similar before the injuries and stuff. Our form was very similar to Brentford. So, and I look at how the Brentford have literally won 11, lost 11.
It's even if you look at like a Brighton and you look at our results against Wolves and Leicester at home.
Yeah,
like those 5 points, and we're quite far up there. And it's like every time I go, I keep getting pulled back. But at the end of the day, the question to me is, it's almost like you said, the one thing I've got right, the main issue I have, I reckon, is deep down, Ange, right? He has his team, right? And he has the way he wants to play, and those players have to live up to that, right? He's not per se elevating the players. Do you see what I mean? And my point there is that is there other managers that can platform the players better potentially, or do you trust when Ange has everything he needs, that he's going to be able to deliver? And that to me that's like you're on 15. Do you want to take a card? Do you know what I mean? Like it's not clear. So and I'm like, and people are like, it's a heel turn. I'm saying no. I'm always dealing with the information and evidence in front of us. And the thing is like I'm saying, I don't know. It's not a case of I knew Ange was what we needed last season, in order to change the I guess the approach and culture. So, but it's almost like everybody else is getting changed right now. Players are getting changed, medical staff's getting changed, lots of other things are getting changed, bar the manager, and there's a lot of faith in the manager, but is it faith because we're mid-season? I don't know. Like I have so many questions, If Ange is manager, first day of next season, I don't know how I'll feel because it's going to come down to this Europa run. And I've seen people saying, hey, AZ, they're not like, they're not. I said, shut up. Don't even go there. Don't even start with AZ. Like, they beat Galatasaray, but you better come out of this tie with a victory. There's no.
Can I ask on that? Can I ask as well? Like, Josh, where do you stand on the whole like Standards FC in terms of the cup run for Europa? Is that make or break for you in terms of Ange? If he's here next season, do you think like we can continue to play in this particular style? Does this style need to adapt? But where are you on this as well?
So you can't just avoid the Premier League, man. That's the bread and butter. That's the acid test. You know, cups are one-off games. There's 6 or 7 games to a final, or more now with the changes this year. So you can't focus on just the cups, but we have to right now. We just have to, because who do we go and get? If we sack him, what difference does it make in the league? Couple of places
I'm talking
in
about
the league.
I'm talking about in the summer. I'm not talking about
In the summer. In the summer,
summer. Like we've
see,
done a cup run.
Yeah.
And like, are you like a thing where if he gets knocked out of the cup, like let's say he gets knocked out, I don't know, finals, semi-finals, does Ange get the summer, or do we cut ties and look for another manager? Because let's face it, if we are to stick with Ange, it's going to be harder if he doesn't perform well. Let's say in the autumn, and then, the results start to differ, like you said, league's bread and butter. But
it's a bit like Ten Hag, isn't it, Ash?
Yeah,
Ten Hag survived.
That's what I'm saying. We could be in that
based on
Ten
the
Hag
FA Cup.
situation.
Yeah,
and I know
it's
worst case scenario thinking, but
it's very similar, bruv. It's very similar. I mean, do you give him another 200 million? Do you give him another 150 million? Which is what I'd expect Levy to spend. So so it's a big question, and whoever you give that money, you want to give it to a manager who's gonna last the season. You don't want a Ten Hag situation. Nobody does. United fans are suffering today. Ruben Amorim could have come in the summer, and who knows with the pre-season. So
yeah.
it's a massive question, mate. And there isn't a simple answer. It's all opinions. It's all it's all subjective. I would say, look,
logically, what do you think?
I've never seen the fan base so divided. I've never felt so divided. So I throw myself in that as well. Do you know what I mean? I knew where I was with Conte. I knew where I was with Poch. This one's getting me. I'm not going to lie. This one's got me all season. I am tangled up inside. And you're laughing, so you're probably feeling the same, right?
Yeah,
so, you know what I mean? I was having this chat with someone just before I answer your question about there's something I like about him. There's something I personally like about Ange. I like the way he speaks. I like the sort of brave heart.
Say that.
I like that, and I didn't like that. I've not felt like that since Poch.
Do you think that, like, because it's like having a past relationship, and I bring Drew into this as well. Do you?
Are we going dating now? Yeah.
I mean, listen. I feel like because we've been mistreated, like not mistreated, but people feel very emotional about Jose. When it was the Amazon documentary, it felt like it was all about, Jose. It was less about Spurs, you know what I'm saying? And then obviously it was a bad feeling when he was like throwing players under the bus. People didn't really like that, do you understand? Then you forward on to Conte. Remember, even when he got sacked here, and people were saying, look, the vibes are a bit toxic, the players don't want to play for him, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, he got sacked before the cup final. Was like, look, Mr. Levy Club. I mean, talk about Mr. Levy Club. You know what I'm saying? Fans really like that. Then we move forward to Conte, innit? Conte came in.
That's why Levy sacked him.
But but this is it. But Conte came in now, and then even Conte, he threw a couple players under the bus, right? And he was like, it's the players, I can't do the accent. But he's like, 20 years, they know we're nothing. Why? Do you know what I'm saying? And so again, fans are like, oh my days, get this manager out of my club. Like, this guy thinks he's better than us. He's talking down at us. He thinks he's bigger than us. And now all of a sudden you've got this Aussie guy who's Greek, down to earth.
But wait, Ash, these guys are talking from a winning CV, man.
I know, but I'm saying from an Ange in perspective. I'm talking like a mindset from an Ange perspective. Are they looking at it like?
I think the one thing everyone likes about Ange, if I'm not mistaken, 80% of the fan base likes about Ange, is when we attack, we attack. Yeah, we proper attack. So there's that DNA stuff there, right? That we want to see Spurs do
as well, because we've been that since the 60s.
We saw it against Ipswich. Ipswich was both sides of Ange. Do you remember the first 15 minutes as Ipswich away? Crap. Yeah, they could have scored a hat-trick. Delap should have scored 3. Delap should have scored 3 in the first 15 minutes. Then it became Ange ball, right? We were attacking, we were 4-1 in the end. That's Ange. That is Ange. Brighton is Ange. 2-0 up. Do you know what I mean? It's such a halfway house where you're like, I like half of it, but the other half stinks. And do you do any defensive training? Do you have any defensive coaches?
This is what I wanted to ask you, because it's like, obviously Deji would, shouts to Deji would call it shaking your bum. Yeah. And
It's twice now.
the thing is Josh, I want to say like I've always said out of possession, I don't understand what we're trying to do. Like I've never understood what we're trying to do.
I don't think the players know, mate.
Exactly. So my thing is that when it's like it's almost like continuing the relationship. We're a battered wife, and the first guy who's come up afterwards, who's bought us some roses, taken us for a nice chicken dinner.
Wow.
We've been like, oh, Ange, yeah, and it's like I'm like,
Yeah, you call Ange fans.
I say it like this. It's the Emperor's new clothes phenomenon. Like, is there when you look at how we play, the intensity, the pressing, the speed of the ball, the no other manager would play like that. Not because they're scared, because they're like, why would I do this?
Suicidal.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And that's my issue. And it's almost like I feel like Ange now is learning, hey, I can't really do this, mate. And it's fine. But it's just from my point of view, looking at it, and I wanted to know what you think about like when you actually analyze the play, like you say, Ipswich, the early minutes and stuff like that. And I just think to myself, like setting up a team out of possession in the Premier League now is so important. Yeah, you look at Arteta and Arsenal, and you look how just being solid. Yeah,
Structure.
exactly. Well, it can get you wins. Like you can be structured, and you'll get an opportunity to play.
Slot's the best example in the league of it.
Slot's the perfect example
The
because
balance is there.
Exactly. He has the attacking patterns.
You've done that as well.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Salah helps, but his structure's there, man.
Yeah, no, but do you lot think? Because I heard this on the stream. Big up Football Heritage TV, and I was watching it on Sunday. I was meant to be on it, but Arian was like, they asked him a question. Arian, he's on We Are Tottenham TV at times. He calls in quite a few times, and he's been on panels. And he's massive Ange in, and he said they asked him like, what type of style of play do you like? What was the type of manager or what type of team really impressed you? And he's quite young, so he was like, Jurgen Klopp. I like the way Jurgen Klopp played. And then he kind of related it towards Ange, which kind of made sense to me because with Jurgen Klopp's style, it was heavy metal, rock and roll football, high press, gegenpress, high energy. We dominate you and we try to defend high up where we kind of force teams into mistakes, if that makes sense. So listening to what he was saying about Klopp, and he was like the front three of Mane and Salah, and then obviously they had Firmino in the front three. It was devastating. And when he related it to
but with Klopp, just on that, with Klopp, that the first 2 years, yes, he played that football, but he quickly adjusted to the Premier League.
He did.
Which, by the time they got Salah, Firmino, and Mane, he wasn't playing that high intense football because every February, March is when Liverpool used to drop off. Dortmund was the same; they dropped off because they literally couldn't play that way all season, and he learned quickly in the Premier League that he couldn't play that way, and that's when they won the league. In a weird and wonderful way, they were lucky because of COVID, because we never know if that drop off was going to happen because they got the rest, which they didn't have like the years before. I know Man City fell off and everything like that, but the same thing happened to Leeds when they came up. The only reason why Leeds came up was because of COVID, because again they got that rest period because of Bielsa football, that literally intense football that only lasts until February, March, when they all start to drop off. The same as with Maresca. Maresca's getting found out now with it. And Leicester fans told us.
Slot style of play as well is not as risky. It's not as risky as Klopp's was.
that.
They would lose. They would win 3-2. You won't see that in a slot too much.
Yeah, exactly. But my point is, and Drew, you can answer me for this, like, because, and I've always said I like the idea of Ange, whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But the reality of it is that there is times when you can't always. Teams can play through that press. Do you understand?
Right. No, absolutely.
When you said at the start, you think Spurs would finish, in the top 6. My question was, what happens even when we had our full team, our best team? What happens when teams are able to beat that press, whether it be with Solanke, at the helm and Van der Ven at the back with Acario sweeping up behind? in this modern day era in the Premier League, the coaches now, they find a way to kind of counter those presses. Do you
Right.
still think?
Well,
Do you think like a lot of fans do romanticize on this kind of chaotic, like we're forcing teams into chaos and that's how we're going to win the ball, or do you think Ange had another plan on top of that to kind of mix things up?
I mean, I think when he came into the club, obviously he's got his idea and he's got a philosophy or an ethos or the way he wants to play. And I guess my issue with comparing us to Liverpool is that we did just kind of compare I mean, I'll take nothing away from Arne Slot. You've obviously got to go in there and you've got to sprinkle the magic dust and you've got to get everybody on side. And I understand that. I don't want to take anything away from him. But he's walked into a back five of Alisson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Virgil van Dijk, Konate, and Andy Robertson. He's got Salah. You got Darwin Núñez, who, love him or hate him, has still been there a decent amount of time to try and understand what the Liverpool team expect of him. But you've got just the relationship of Trent Alexander-Arnold and Salah. They've played 250 times together, 300 times together. Like Virgil van Dijk and Konate and Alisson, and even the young goalkeeper Kelleher. He's been there long enough that they all kind of understand each other, in some instances almost in a second nature. They know where they're going to be. And again, I have to harp back onto it. Look at how many times our squad has played with each other. We're talking 30, 40 times in the Premier League together in some instances. In some instances, less than 20 times. So I just have a hard time, because although Slot's done a great job, there was so much of a foundation there for him to work with. And they do have quite a young nucleus when it comes to the midfield. Szoboszlai's not been there for a huge amount of time. So he has had to integrate players. I get it.
I hear your point. Can I just quickly interject?
Yeah,
Do you think
absolutely.
if Ange had walked into Liverpool
or slot Tottenham,
or Slot walked into Tottenham, there would be different results.
All right, listen.
League positioning. Go on, Jay. Go on.
All right, listen. Okay,
go for it.
Listen, if you swapped at last season, we would have made top 4. We might even have been 3rd. Yeah. And because we would have really. I think just the use of the squad, of when I see how he's used certain players. You remember Perisic went down. I'm not trying to say that Ange cost Perisic his ACL, but but it's more like if you look at Ange and Liverpool, oi, woo, Van Dijk's hamstring, finito, yeah, Konate, finito. Yeah.
Do you know why they brought Slot in? It's because they identified his injury record.
Was exactly.
Was one of the best in Europe.
There's no way you could put Konate in our system and he ain't pulling up every 15 games.
Yeah,
because he's already a somewhat injury prone player.
I think also on Trent. Imagine Trent inverting Porro.
Bro, yeah, that would be nice.
Gomez will never be seen again.
That would be nice. But then imagine Trent being exposed one-on-one continually against wingers, half and half in position and not in possession.
Do you not agree with what Ashley's saying? He's saying Slot is not brave.
The one thing that Ange would have with Liverpool is Liverpool's midfielders are really technically good.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
So Ange wouldn't do incompetent things like I've seen our midfield do often.
Yeah.
So he would have that big advantage in terms of that. And I don't think they'd be top. I think they might be not a million miles away from how they were last season.
Yeah.
So, maybe start well, burn out, players maybe get found out a little bit.
This is the point I'm trying to get at.
Hold on. Yeah, hold on 1 second though. Are you lot? So basically, are we at the point where we're saying, because obviously we've asked if Slot and Ange swapped, is it more about the culture of the club and the way it's being run to why a manager can then come in and sell? And the reason why I'm going to use Brighton as the prime example here, where they can go from Potter to De Zerbi to what's his name, Hertzler, and
Mhm.
actually it seems seamless. Even though they're not probably pulling the same results as they did under Zerbi, but you can blatantly see that it doesn't take them 2 or 3 years for that manager to come in and be settled. Or like everyone's always going, Ange is only 2 years in or 18 months in. If we were better run as culturally as a club, and we knew what direction we were going in instead of keep changing it, do you think Ange would have stood a better chance?
I think the Liverpool example is a good one for that, Marlon, because the DNA of the club, we know what Liverpool's about. You know, Liverpool is a club that wins a trophy every season, most seasons, or at least 2 trophies most seasons. So, you know, just walking out there, you know, along that you never walk alone bit, you know, with all the trophies, it tells you everything you need to know about that club, recent history. So when you play for Liverpool, there's a minimum standard which is a lot higher than when you play for Spurs. So it's definitely a little bit of that. I agree with you. There's definitely a culture issue at Spurs and less of a culture issue at Liverpool. In fact, when you go Liverpool, you probably feel empowered because you just got to look at the recent success. Just putting on the shirt probably feels better than putting on the Spurs shirt, especially when you've had your ex-manager just put the club under a bus. And then you've got this bloke from Scotland come along who's never even played in the Premier, who's never even worked in the Premier League, let alone play in the Premier League. So there are different levels to this. But I mean, back to what you were just saying about Brighton, that's a really good point. There is a seamless transition there that doesn't seem to break down. They're still doing well. You know, Brighton are a really well-run club. The chairman seems to be, you know, loved by the fans. The managers love him. I don't know if De Zerbi fell out with him in the end because he was a bit of a, you know, he was a bit of a character, wasn't he? But you have to ask the question, the problems that we're seeing at Spurs, especially on the pitch, if they don't get rectified, then, and I'm talking about systematic issues. So if we talk about Porro down the right, if that doesn't get rectified, you have to question the manager. You know, if the inverted fullbacks are found out in a game and the opposition's nullified that threat, you have to question the manager. If we camp in and we don't know how to camp in and counterplay because we don't drill it enough at Hotspur Way, you have to question the manager. And a lot of these things, even the injuries, I was speaking to, funnily enough, just the other day, because I got my own hamstring issue going at the moment. Funnily enough, coincidentally, I went to see a doctor. He worked for Spurs. He still works for Spurs. I can't give his name right now. I'm going to try and get him on YouTube. We're going to have a little chat because I got to go see him in 2 weeks.
And now you're out.
And do you know what he said?
Yeah. Now you're finished. Now your hamstring's finished.
Listen, the funny thing is he's not a Spurs fan. He supports another team. And I said to him, "Oh, you're doing this by purpose because the other team's a top 6 team. It's not Arsenal. It's not Chelsea either. It's a team up north." But basically, he mentioned to me, he said, there's 2 things. One is sometimes the managers don't listen to the doctors. We had AVB looking over the players with the doctor saying he can play when he doesn't even know what's wrong with the guy. And then you get other times when the manager in training pushes it too hard. That's another reason. And then he said it's tactics. He said there's obviously more than one reason for consistent injuries, but he goes, those are the 3 or 4 main reasons that go into the melting pot when it comes to consistent injuries. That's on Ange. Now, I'm not Ange out. I might sound Ange out. I'm Ange learn and learn fast and change and adapt and grow because I like your attacking football, Ange. I like the fact you're brave. I like the fact you're a good man manager by the sounds of it with most of the players. I like the fact you give youngsters a chance. I want that at Spurs because I know my chairman's not going to sign someone on 250 grand a week. So I'm going to need a manager that brings through the youth and gives the Mikey Moores and so-calls a chance. But I need to see you learn. I need to see you show me that you are learning from these losses. And that's what I'm going to judge him on for the next 10, 15 games. Are you changing and adapting in-game management, substitutions, pick and Spence, not pick and Spence? These kind of decisions, man, that the fan base can see that we know against Man City, we know what Doka's going to do. We saw him do it against Trent and he starts Porro. For me, that's an L. That doesn't mean I'm Ange out, but I'm going to call out his L's. But I am Ange change and I'm Ange learn because I'm not happy with the Ange at the moment. And anyone who is happy with Ange at the moment, maybe you ain't seen enough football in your life. I don't know. Maybe you're young. That's my rant over.
Cool. Was he breaking up? Was that, or am I breaking up?
You're breaking up.
You're breaking up.
We're breaking up.
We had every single word, mate.
It's me. It's not you. It's me. It's me. But no, I wanted to ask on that whole Mickey Van de Ven, Romero. Obviously, he's going to Argentina. and Danso and Archie Gray are being playing. Like, do you not think Archie Gray's minutes will be numbered now that Romero is back in the frame? And go on, Marlon. I feel like you're going to say something.
Do you believe that Archie Gray should have been named London Player of the Year, Young Player of the Year as well?
Sorry, that was it. That was the question.
Oh,
That was the question.
Who else?
Sorry,
Who
my
else
bad.
were the options?
What Skelly had to be, nah? Skelly,
No, Skelly ain't playing enough.
Ranieri.
Ranieri,
Ranieri.
Adam Walton would have been another because he was in.
I would have just given it Ethan, to be fair.
But did Archie Gray get it on the sympathy vote? Because if I said to you who's been better this season, Bergvall or Archie Gray, and they both came in the team at the same time, who would you say?
I would say I would say Bergvall. I'm not a revisionism fan. I'm not forgetting that he played 6 minutes and our fan said he's crap. I'm finished. I'm done with him. Get him off. He's terrible. Lang, you will pay for your listen, that's how we are. So I feel like Gray's done. This is the problem where it's he's done well. The boy costs 40 million and he's on 80k a week. I should hope he does do well.
But has he? Because if you look at how many goals we have conceded, and I know this is not just on him, and everyone will sit there and say he's playing out of position, but we've conceded so many more goals since he's been there.
Honestly,
he's got to have played well.
On my mother's life, I think he's better at centre back than Dragusin.
Not hard.
But that's not hard.
Our form only went up because Dragusin did his ACL. I promise you, if Dragusin hadn't have got injured, we would have lost the last 4 games.
Yeah,
100%.
There's no Danso, and we know that.
Is Gray like?
I feel like if you take into account the fact that he's had to play with Dragusin and then Danzo, I don't think he's even played with Romero or VDV yet.
No,
he's also played with Ben Davis. He's also played with 2 different left backs. He's also played with a goalkeeper that's only at the point, had only played 18 months of professional football, and was 21 years old coming into the Spurs team, and people expecting miracles of him. If you ask me, yes, we conceded a lot of goals in that period, but Kinski and his floppy hands and his floppy wrists are just as culpable. If we're going to say we're going to say
he sold me a bill of goods. He sold me a bill of goods, guys. That first game against Liverpool. He was hugging his sisters in the stand like he won an Oscar. I swear to God, I can't believe it.
No, but in all seriousness, but you've told me all that. But does that still warrant him to win London Young Player of the Year? When there are better players across London, and even a better young player in our team that's played better than him in a simple. Well, I get Bergvall's played in his position, but it's not to say Archie Gray. I'm not saying Archie Gray's crap. It's more of a case of did he warrant to win?
Marlon, you have to say that the step up for Bergie's been huge. From where he's come from, Djurgården or whatever it's called, to the Premier League and do that. And then you look at the Championship, and he was the best player in the Championship last season, Archie Gray. He's had that British football, English football education. Bergie's just been thrown in. So I would say Bergie's had more of a...
I'm going to say something controversial. Is it the British tax that he gets, the English tax? The reason why he got the award?
Yeah, because I don't get
it. I'll be real.
I probably have a little. People say I have a vendetta against Archie Gray, but when I look at it, when I look at his performances, I'm not saying he's been crap and he's been doing a job there. He has been doing a job, but not a job good enough to win. When I look at some of the players that he would have been up against, to go, and there's one player in our team that probably was played better than him because they both came in at the same time. Bergvall and Archie Gray came in at the same time, and I feel like I've got more trust in Bergvall. And Archie Gray's not even playing in his position. And as Ash said, when the 2 centre backs come back, who's more likely to play in the next 4 months, Archie Gray or Bergvall?
I just saw the list, and Skelly and Ethan were both on the list. I think, obviously appreciate Like, but I do think both. I mean, it's very difficult to say. Like, I think Archie's been good, but I do think Ethan has been outstanding, and he's younger, and he's been doing it on Champions League level and stuff like that. And you've got Skelly, who's gone into their team, and they've got about 65 left backs. Yeah, and he's managed to Hunger Games his way to the starting spot. And he's got that dog in him. He reminds me a bit of Delph, He reminds me a bit of, when Fabian Delph was doing up left back stint? Killing Kane on the
Off like
touch.
100 times.
Killing Kane on the touch. But so I don't think he deserves it purely because
But then if you put Ethan as a left back or right back, he would struggle, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think Gray's that. I don't think he's that far from home. Do you know what I mean? Like he's like.
I think he's done amazing considering where he's been put and who he's been put with.
Yeah, but if you look at it like this, when the votes probably happened, we're probably the worst team in London at that precise moment. We're below West Ham at that moment. So, and I'm looking at the rest of London going, did Archie Gray only get? If you're sitting there telling me that he done a good job, but was his job good enough to warrant winning that? Because I don't think he's played outstanding at centre back. I think he's just done a job which he's had no choice but to do.
He's done a good job.
He hasn't really, because we've seen goals.
He's done a good job.
He hasn't done a good job.
I think he's done a good job for an 18-year-old.
Yeah, him and Dragushi, I don't care what people say.
How many individual mistakes do you reckon he's made? Maybe one or two?
Huh? But when
maybe one or two? Three?
His positioning from some of the goals we have conceded have not been great.
Do you know what, Marlon? His poorest game was Ipswich. I know the votes for after that, but Ipswich first 15 minutes, Delap had him on toast. And he kept showing him the space.
Yeah, but that's
and I'm not a coach, but anyone could see that. Like, what you're doing with Delap, there's three chances, even the header.
Go watch some of the games where we've conceded and just go watch where his positioning is. And I've said that's already.
But isn't centre back the hardest position on the pitch for an 18-year-old that's never played there? That's the business end of the pitch, isn't it? You can get away with it on a wing or maybe even in midfield, but can you get away with it at the centre back? That's where the goals go in.
No, goalkeeper.
Or even goalkeeper.
Goalkeeper's the hardest.
But his goalkeeper's been shit as well. His goalkeeper's been shit as well. So his stats were probably better if he had Vicario behind him. I just think with the mess around him, he's done very well. And I think for someone who's never been a centre back, who's never been trained as a centre back as a young kid, who's never played as a centre back, I mean, you throw him in and he comes out with 7s and 8s. Come on, man. I respect to the guys.
No one in our team's getting 8s.
You guys are harsh, man. You guys are harsh. Okay, cool.
Because there's a
6s and 5s, then yeah.
Josh, there's a standard. So if I said to you, okay, if he's been getting 7 and 8s, Josh, when Romero and Van der Ven comes back, he stays in the team then because he's been doing that well.
No, I think for the circumstances, he's getting 7 and 8s. For what was around him, and where he was, to put him in a team full of disjointed relationships, a bad team, a reckless system, and he's done what he's done. I respect him. I respect him, man. In that system. Listen, you play him in Nottingham Forest's system, he'll do even better because there'll be more shape and defensive structure around him. So even if you take the system in there, he's done well, man. He's done well, and you have to look at everything in it, guys. Got to look at the system, got to look at the relationships, got to look at the opposition, got to look at the age, the experience, and the fact that he's never been a centre back. So for me, he deserves it. Just about. Nathan's a good shout for sure. Skelly's a good shout. I don't know what the other guys in there. Was there any Chelsea players in there?
No, it's just that Romain Eze from Millwall as well made the list.
Who went in there? Was he?
No.
Yeah, I want to talk about I want to talk about so many things. Spence being one, but I think I want to talk about Romero though. Romero is in the Argentinian squad, isn't he? And
he's probably there now. Probably is.
Drew, let me ask Drew, innit? Drew, so what? Romero, do you think he should be sold in the summer, or would you keep him like this?
I think and I say this knowing that, like, from a skill point of view, he's arguably probably our best centre back when it comes to progressing the ball. But if he's not going to sign a long-term contract, there's no point in letting him devalue himself. By the looks of it, I'm not entirely sure he wants to be there. I don't know if it's just clever camera work, but I never seem to see him on the sidelines when everybody else is there doing their thing. So I don't know, man. It's a shame. I'd like to see him there. I'd like to see him commit. I'm not sure he will. Just don't see it. And Danzo is making that kind of a little bit less painful because I think he's doing really well. So I don't know. Would I like to see both of them? Yeah. Do I think
Just on
Spurs
that
should be?
Danso point. Just on that Danso point. Danso, I don't know if you lot saw it, but that goal that Haaland scored, I'm like,
oh God, yeah. What was he doing?
If that was Romero, I think the fan base would have lost it. Do you know what I'm saying? Because the first point, what he does, the first bit is when he charges high up the pitch, and he doesn't quite win it. He doesn't quite win that ball, right?
Yeah.
From it was Mamouche, isn't it? He pressed Mamouche. Mamouche turns him and beats him, does a little 1-2, and then all of a sudden Haaland's in acres of space. So Danso's out of position. Now, is that an Ange thing?
Yes, bro! Oh my God, I know this broke my laptop. Bro, because as you were describing it, I start getting
flashbacks.
Vietnam style flashbacks to the goal we conceded against Liverpool when Spence charged out to go press. Yeah? Therefore, Ange is not telling these players accordingly not to do that. Yeah, these players don't in real time know when they should go or when they shouldn't.
Let me stop you on that one. Because Slot had a similar thing when he was making Konate jump out. Then he realized that City realized there was spacing behind, and they were utilizing that. And so what he quickly did, he sent an instruction out to one of the defenders, and he said, "Hey, Konate, stop jumping, stay in the line. Don't get baited into that trap. Stay in the line with your defensive line." And they cut that out straight away. However, I have never seen Ange go up to Mason on a screen, and like they've got the iPad. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen Ange go to the iPad and be like, like point at the screen quickly, talk, and then go over and then say an instruction to a player. Maybe Alistair Gold's got like the update and I missed it, and he needs to let me know, innit? But I would like to see that kind of in-game management. But yeah, I'm just saying, I don't know. Does Romero need some more grace? Because maybe that was an instruction. I don't know. I've seen Ben Davies do it, by the way, as well. Do that whole jumping.
Well, the thing, the pressing is pressing, isn't it? So it's like, for me, I look at it and I'm like, the Ange especially with that kind of thing, yeah. It's like, I always look at players now in modern football and I look at how much detail do you get from your coach, yeah. And to me, I've always said this before, football IQ is very expensive. It's the most expensive thing you're buying in players. It's IQ, good decision making. Yeah. If you're not buying players who have really good IQ, you must granularly feed them information so they kind of know what to do at all times. Yeah.
So what is it? Was it Danso's IQ?
Yeah.
That he's got like.
So my thing is my thing is that when you say, is it IQ? Is it the tactics? It's in that moment, Danzo's making that move, but the team doesn't have instruction to not make that move. It's like sometimes what you're told not to do is as important as what you're told to do.
Like a child, like going to a flame.
Exactly. Like, as in, like, don't, like, it's like Mamouche does this. This is what Mamouche does. Like, I don't know how much tape the players get on other players. I don't know how much homework they're given to study. I have no idea. I don't know if they're not doing the work. I don't know if the video team aren't giving. But what I'm saying is that that's a thing where it's like, this guy likes to drop deep. Yeah, he likes to do this. He likes to do that. Don't go with him. Or if you do go with him, Benton Cole, you need to drop. Like, as in, like, they need like that conversation of seeing the match in advance and knowing what's going to happen, and then having automisms to go into when these things happen. I don't think we have that, and I'm not trying to critique Ange in that way. I'm just saying he's not that kind of manager. But I'm almost like, okay, you need to buy much better IQ
Correct.
players then.
Correct. That's
If
what
you
I
want to
think.
leave them to it.
But
Because
guys, look at Nuno, right? Nuno's doing what he's doing with what you could argue is an average squad. You know, maybe top 8 squad. You could argue that's probably where you'd put that squad at Nottingham Forest in terms of comparing it to other squads in the Premier League. You'd say 8th is about right. Maybe push it to 6th if you really want. But no one's really pushing that squad to 3rd. But look at what shape, structure, instructions, everyone knowing their jobs. You know, set piece defending. Look this Nuno is a classic example of what good management, good setup, good drilling, good offensive and defensive play is all about. Because that's not luck. If it was luck, he would have run out by Christmas. You know, that's a team that knows what they're doing. You look at like other teams, Bournemouth. You can see the patterns of play. You can see the defensive shape. Yes, they are very open, but you see the same patterns. And where I would criticize Ange is when we do lose the ball, and we can talk about it all night, out of possession, etc. When we do lose the ball, that was just a hopeful cross by Dockley that went in the box. That was bad defending by the individuals, if you ask me. I don't think you can really. I mean, yeah, the system might lead to the goal, but the goal itself was based on defensive errors from all the individuals across the back line. No one sensing the danger, because that was the easiest goal Haaland will score all season. That was just a tap in. So you can blame the players for that individual moment, but in terms of defensive setup and shape and how we look off the ball, do you guys see any patterns off the ball with Spurs? Do we see any players doubling up on a player? Do we see man marking? Do we see zonal marking? Do you guys see any of that? Because I see a team that plays expansive football and hopes not to get beat. But I might be wrong.
I
I
mean,
might not be seeing it the way others are.
I'll have to ask Drew that question, because obviously Drew's the one that, you know, your belief is the top 6, and the reason why I keep coming back to you, Drew, is because I'm not sure. I just have some doubts over that top 6 element because of the defensive frailties, because of what people have been saying in terms of it's like, and that's the reason why I brought the kind of the Klopp thing up, because yes, Klopp was winning games, but it was always like, as people said, 3-2 or 4-3. It was never like a controlled win. When was the last time you could say that we controlled a game where we looked like out of possession, like we looked solid?
I mean, to be honest with you, I'd have to go back to the beginning of the year, because I think we were really unlucky to lose the Arsenal game and the Newcastle game. Like, if you actually look at the numbers behind the possession that we had, the shots that we had compared to theirs. I mean, and again, I don't know. Let me put it out to you guys, right? Because last year, arguably, what you would consider to be our first 11, we were able to field them, I think, 5 times, maybe 6. Now, that's obviously subjective, depending on who you consider to be our first 11. But that was staple names that you would consider to be on the pitch. And then it gets compounded, and this is kind of, this is where it gets subjective, because you can argue who's to blame for injuries, this, that, or the other. But the fact is, the injuries have caused this squad not only to lack an ability to train, but when they have been able to train, you've had first teamers going up against some of the under 18s and some of the under 21s. So I have to ask myself, how much training, how much coaching, given the situation, have they actually really been able to do? And this is where my green shoots for Ange come from the fact that I feel like when we have played really well, or let me step back. There isn't, since Poch, I don't remember watching us and going, we should be 3-0 up by now, and we're not. We should be 4-1 up by now, and we're not. And that, to me, comes down more to the players not being clinical enough, which then goes back to, has Ange been backed necessarily with the quality of player? Or I think that, given, in my mind, had we had more time with these players as a nucleus, I think we'd be better. I think we'd break down less. And I'd call me delusional, but I just see something there. And it goes back to Josh's point earlier, like quite simply, I just kind of want it to work because there's something about Ange that I just kind of like. And I get the vibe from him that he genuinely wants to be here. He genuinely wants to make it work. And I've had my fallouts with him as well. I think he can be a crabby bastard. I can't stand him in press conferences sometimes. He does himself absolutely no favors. But then I also sit there and listen to some of the questions that these journos put to him. And I think to myself, Jesus, I'd probably be just as prickly. So I don't know. There is something there, in my opinion, and that's where the top six comes from. Like, I think all things considered, if these guys had another 50 games between them to build the relationships, I just think we would be up there.
Yeah. I just wanted to is like, just to finish off your point, is that the highest position you think Spurs could get, or do you think Spurs
No,
could get higher?
no. I mean,
Like for next season, if Ange is here next season,
oh,
you envision him breaking that top four? Because is that what you ultimately want for Spurs? Would you want Spurs to be a top four club and to be back where do you see Spurs?
I mean, I've been supporting my first memory of Spurs is 3-2 cup final defeat against Coventry. I'm 45 years old. I haven't seen many trophies, but the ones I have seen, I've kind of, I've cherished. But I've also been there when we've had some really horrible, rough times, like, flirting with relegation and having to watch Jurgen Klinsmann, do wonders for us against Wimbledon to save our bacon. So I've kind of been there in the real bad times. And this to me is just it's a blip. It's a horrible blip. I think we've struggled. We've had a crisis of conscience, and we've had I don't think the club as a whole has known what it wants to be for the last few years. But I think if the board were to change and they were to flex their financial muscle a little bit, I think there's potential. I think Ange could challenge regularly for the league. I'm not sure, but I mean, if we were winning a cup every other year, if we were giving it a go in the league, if we were in Europe every year there or thereabouts, I mean, I can't complain about that. If you look at the history of trophies over the last 20 years, the majority of them have been won by two clubs that just throw money about willy-nilly, and we're not them. So I just have to take what I can, man.
So just on that as well, if obviously Nottingham Forest in a good position to win the FA Cup, by the way, but I don't think he's still in it. So that statement there, you might be in trouble. We might be in trouble. But do you think then, after what you just said, that he's the man to help us to lift that trophy this season for Europa?
Yeah, I think if we get a little bit of luck, if nobody else breaks down with injury, I've seen
fully
enough.
Fit Spurs, we win Europa. Does that you believe?
What's that?
Fully fit Spurs, we win Europa.
I think fully fit Spurs, I'd be very disappointed if we didn't get to the final and give it a go.
Ooh.
And I've stipulated a few weeks back.
In the semis and not shit ourselves.
I stipulated a few weeks back because somebody asked me, like, Ange in, Ange out, what's the deal come the end of the season? And ultimately, I can't go back on it because I'm not a hypocrite. I said it wasn't him winning the trophy isn't a necessity. What I have to see between now and the end of the season is everybody being on the same page, patterns of play, him learning, again, to coin Josh, like Ange change or Ange learn. I just want to see progression for till the end of the season. I think that could be a cup, but so long as it's, I mean, a fully fit Spurs, I think, could go unbeaten for the rest of the season. But they have to. I do, Jay. I'm that deluded. And I'm not saying there's not.
Man said, is your unbeaten run gold? That's what he said.
I mean, there could be quite a few draws in there, but honestly, I just want to see progression.
So for progression, that could be like right now. Where are we? 13th. 14th?
12.
13.
Please tell me we're 12.
13.
13. All right.
13th.
We want to be in the top
Sorry.
half. That's progression, eh?
Dude, there are 30. There
So,
are
But
Seb, did you
30.
take
I got
Seb's
arthritis in
trophy?
time because of Ange. You know what I mean?
9
33
points off
points
top
or
half.
30 points still to play for. Like it's not. I can't help but
Guaranteed
think
2
that
losses in that, though. There's 2 guaranteed losses.
was
That are
that.
not on Ange. Chelsea away, Liverpool away. They're not on Ange. That's Tottenham as a football club.
But I just, yeah, man.
Drew, that's
I
not. You
feel
said
like
you
there's
saw that
enough.
and you said, "Oh,
You're horrible.
Is it unfathomable, right? Is it unfathomable to think that, like, nobody thought we were going to get off to the start we got off to beginning of last season. So if we could catch that sort of magic for the last part of this season, I just think the potential's there. Now, do I think we're going to do it? I don't know.
Wait,
Am I
can I-
deluded? Quite possibly.
Can I
But
speak
we
on
got to
that?
go
one?
for it, right?
Can I-
Why? You got to do it.
Can I speak on that one? I think like it's
Yeah.
the first 10 games. I don't know if you lot agree, but I think when Ange came in, people didn't know what the tactics were. They didn't understand it. They didn't understand. They didn't even know we were inverting two fullbacks at the start, and I think that's what tactically caught a lot of teams out, and hence why we won the first, was it 8 or 10 games? I know we drew a
Was it
couple.
1-8 drew 2?
Yeah, 1-8 drew 2, right? So
They weren't the best kind of. I mean, if you go back and look at those games, they weren't. It's not like, I think there was only 1 or 2 teams that we actually blew out the water. Like, there were people
This
saying
is
that
what
we
I was
were
gonna
lucky
say.
to win some of those, right?
This is what I was going to say. So, because I feel like those first 8 to 10 games in most some Spurs fans kind of puts Ange on a pedestal, not a pedestal, but it gives him more grace because of that start. Do you know what I mean? And people always look at the underlying numbers for that, and the fact that we were like top of the table, and like what Josh was saying at the start, we're now from playing defensive football, we're actually kicking the ball forward. And I think the actual players themselves, they were galvanized because they had been playing low blocks against lower teams for so long. They felt, oh my days, we're playing front-footed football, we're in our positions half, and we're playing the football that we enjoy, and the manager's talking our language. And I think that kind of like manifested that kind of made fans overestimate where we actually were. And I think they're still taking those 10 games into season after season after season. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's only been another one season. It's not season after season after.
Well, no, I say
like,
season after season after season, because I'm saying the third season, you want him there in the third season. So you're,
right.
but I think you're building off the back of those first 10 games still. Do you know what I mean?
Well, this is one thing I would say is I remember when we got Ange, and I remember fans were like, "Oh my god, I hope Ange takes the job, because if he doesn't, we're gonna end up with someone like Brendan Rodgers." And I remember saying at the time, I was like, oh, "Why don't you rate Brendan Rodgers? Like, what makes you think Brendan Rodgers isn't a good coach?" And this isn't my thing with Ange, is that with everything we look at, and he is learning on the job. He's developing and he's growing on the job, and that's fine. And he is being supported. The support comes from the fact the club doesn't say, no, you're taking a Jacob Ramsey, rather than saying you can just play with Bergvall. And it works vice versa in terms of, okay, we want more established players, but the club knows that they undermanned the summer window in terms of experience. They know that, yeah, and that's giving Ange good grace within it, because the club know that you're working together with the manager, and the club have to hold that. But 2 years is a good amount of time. But like, even decisions like, maybe Spence is too tired. This is the problem. Is Spence too tired? Maybe you don't play Spence against Ipswich. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you play him against City because we know we need him against City, and it's just, yeah, I just don't know. There's a lot of question marks. The thing I would say is, when people talk about the players and Ange and Galvin, I'm like, bro, do you think the Brighton players didn't like Potter, and then they didn't like De Zerbi, and now they don't like Herzog? Like, You'll change the manager, they'll get over it. Do you know what I mean? They'll get over it. That's how it works. So,
But Jay, I think it is for fans. They just don't want to reset again because that's too painful to go through that whole process. But I don't think it would be a complete and utter reset per
it's not a
se
reset.
because
It's not a reset. It's a building on. It's a building on what we've got. There's the
Yeah,
squad.
but
I
the big
believe the
but.
players are better than what they're demonstrating. When I watched the players in the second half against City and stuff like that, I was like, rah. And even moments in the first half, I was like, rah. So you guys can pass to each other properly under pressure from the opposition. And that comes to. And then I'm saying, all right. I said, all right. Could a manager who's telling these players like give these players homework. This is the player you're playing. This is your. I feel like our players come into training, enjoy themselves, have a good time, go out on the weekend, play some attacking football. No
But I
consequences.
tell you what, Jay. But Jay, if we believe what we're told, we've been led to believe, the players haven't been able to train since the beginning of December, or since about the mid of December.
That's fine, bro. Then give them virtual homework. Yeah,
All right.
because
That's fair enough.
because when I watch our players defend, I'm like, you have not been studying this attacker. You don't know his moves. You don't know what he's doing. You don't know his movements. So that tells me that the players, okay, you can't train. Well, why can't they be studying?
Guys, didn't Eric Dyer say it when he joined Bayern? He said there is no tactical training.
or
I know
wasn't
he'd
it
only been there 5 minutes, but you don't come in as a coach and say we'll do the defensive work after Christmas. You do it from day one with the attacking work and the set piece work and everything else. And Eric Dyer had been there, I think, a month, and he was asked, and he said, "No, we don't. We don't do any tactical work." So if that's true, I'll take it with a pinch of salt. But if it's true, that's embarrassing, isn't it?
But no,
How can you not do any?
Ange did come out and say that he didn't want to overload the players.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
No, he said no, but he said he wants them to get the philosophy first. He said he wants them to get the philosophy first.
That's like me when I go into a new job and they're like, "Hey, are you gonna start implementing all the stuff that you wrote on your CV?" I don't want to overload HR at the moment. Give me a week, a couple of weeks. I'll settle in.
I think what he meant was that he wasn't
The
that
culture,
simple.
maybe.
It wasn't that simple. But he's going to put meat on the bones. Like, you got the framework, you got the blueprint, but the devil in the detail will come in the second part of the season. Season, sorry.
I think one big credit, guys. Yeah, we lost Kane to Bayern, and he was the 20-goal man season. We now have the most scored goals across a team in the Premier League. Someone told me that the other day. The Spurs have more spreaded goals than any other team in the Premier League. We have to give credit to Ange because he lost the main man, the club legend, the best striker in the world, you could argue. And then he was left with Richarlison and Son, who worked with Cade well. And now we've got all these goals coming in, so we've got to give him credit for that. But I've always had a problem with the ball going that way, never going that way with Ange. I've always said going that way, I'm happy. I'm very happy going that way most of the time. It's the other way I'm not happy with.
Do you think, would you guys, like, if Solanke's not fit, for AZ Alkmaar, do you think Tel should start, or do you think someone else should be given that role as the number 9 role?
Son should play up front, as in. Even that's a little thing. I'm like, clearly Tel is struggling a little bit back to goal. Son, whilst not being the perfect 9, has shown he can be effective there. This is the problem when you make these kind of transfers and you promise players game time and you assure them that they're going to play and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what you do.
Listen, I don't care about Tel to the extent that we play an ineffective player, but I think he needs time. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm open to hearing your suggestions.
Because it's a thing. That's what you've just brought up. What you've raised is a valid point, because he's obviously told Tel, I need you. I want you as my main player. I've missing a few attackers, and I want you to start. So he's obviously told him that, and lots of fans are saying, Tel needs time. I don't understand why so many people are criticizing him. He's 19 years old. But the caveat to that would be, actually, we've got 3 months left, or I don't know what, we're in March now, aren't we? So technically, we've got April, May. Yeah, 3 months. Call it 3 months left.
11 league games.
11
Just-
league games.
Yeah. 13 max
He
minimum.
hasn't got a lot of games to kind of turn it around, because at the end of the day, he is kind of here to not impress us, but if he's going to be 55 million, some of that Kane money, then he's going to have to start doing something about that, no? Or does he get grace, and then like at the end of the season, we're like, well, you know, it's not his fault really, but let's pay the 55 million. Like what? Like,
The thing is, Ash, which club brings in a loan in the January window that's never played in the Premier League at that age and makes a decision on him to buy him 3 months, 4 months later for 50 million? I don't think any club's done that. I mean, maybe there has been 1 or 2 clubs,
some
but
fans
who
think
really
should be
does
given
that?
a chance. Some fans think, you know, he's young and we need to give him a chance. It's not fair.
I think you need to. I
You know
think
what I mean?
extend the
But
loan for another year, keep the deal as it is, and we'll try him next
yeah,
season. Let him get used to the league.
He ain't
that's
coming back
sensible.
though.
But
He ain't coming back for another year. He's not coming
Well,
back.
listen. Don't like. Let's not just do deals for the sake of doing deals.
this is what
You know
I'm
what I mean?
asking. This is what I'm
That's
asking.
55 million pounds
That's a lot of
sterling. You know,
money.
that's 55 million pounds. You know,
But at the same time, it's part of
technically
the
it's free.
deal.
Yeah.
So
it's-
is it
it's-
really?
It's not money.
Is it really? That's what I'm saying. Is it really money? Is the?
It's wiping.
yes, it's really money. What are you talking about?
It's
It's
wiping off
really
money,
money.
man.
It's
wiping-
really 55.
He's
Just
writing it
because
off.
we happen to be buying, just because it's buying, giving us the money back, doesn't mean that we could
not actually
not
giving us
do
anything.
the deal and we'd still have that money to spend on someone else. It's real money.
But I don't. What it won't go against. So look, obviously Bayern Munich owe us a certain amount for next season anyway. But I think it doesn't go against what we're going to spend next season, because it means that a position we don't have to go for.
No, but Marlon, we are looking at strikers right now. We've been linked with the Sunderland striker of late. We've been linked with the Porto striker, Meridian, lately as well.
It's all Sesko as well.
Tesco also has been linked as well. So we are being linked with strikers. Do you know what I mean? Meaning that Richarlison, he could be out. So, you know what I mean? That's why I go back to that question about Tell. Would you start Tell up front? And this would tell me a lot if the fans really believe in Tell or not. Do you know what I mean? Because some people are saying, right, I don't think Tell should start. You've already said Son should start, Jay.
Well, but
So-
look at it like this, yeah. If Tell's not a success, he ain't getting a club better than us. That's the point. So he can, you know, like he's like, oh, I'm not sure I want to commit to Tottenham, brother. Unless you show up for the second half of the season, you're not getting a bigger move than us. Do you see what I mean?
Well, technically, he is.
Everything's intertwined.
He's
Either
going back
the
to
boy
his-
delivers, or you know, I don't want us to be in a Werner situation next season where we feel obliged or obligated. We've got Odebear, Son, and Mikey Moore as left wingers. Personally, yeah, Tell as well.
Hey,
So that's
just-
four left.
But
Oh,
Tell
no,
goes
no,
back to
no,
Bayern.
no.
Hey, Jay, hold on. That statement. No, Tell just goes back to Bayern and then proves himself there.
Bro, nah, bro. They want to catch, bro. They're linked to Bino Gittins. I'm sure they would have bought Odebear if we hadn't have got him. They were in for Destiny Doué at PSG, so they clearly are motivated to bring in another winger, and
Yeah,
they
but
don't see him as nine, and they're not playing him. So
Yeah,
to
but-
me, they've moved on from this guy. Like as in mentally, they want to offload him. So
Depends
I
if
don't
Company
think he
wins the
goes
league,
back to
though,
Bayern
don't
anyway.
Yeah, but it depends if Company wins the league, because if Leverkusen come back, because there's still a chance, Company gets sacked. Tell's got another chance.
No, I'm saying that basically you've got those three wingers and you've got just Johnson. So I'm saying you're going to bring in because I think if you bring in Tell, you're not buying a striker. Yeah, because we still need a right winger.
Yeah.
So how are we gonna? So we're gonna bring in Tell, a striker, and a right winger in one window, and a six, and maybe a left-sided impossible.
Impossible.
So it's either Tell or a new striker. Because if we get Tell and we don't get a right winger, I'm like, what are we doing here?
This is why I'm asking it, because people are like, oh, you're going too harsh on Tell and this and that. But, bro, I'm saying 55 mil. Like, look, Tell's a good player. I think Tell, technically, he looks like the business. But in the number 9 role, I don't think he's that guy. I think he's more of a off the shoulder type of inside forward, whatever you want to call it, type of player. I don't think he's a winger per se either. So that's the reason why I'm like, it's a hard one. I don't see this Tell situation being sorted out unless he starts pulling up trees all of a sudden. So, and even just going back to that AZ Alkmaar question, Drew, what do you think? Who should be the front three now that Kulusevski's out? Who's the front three in your opinion?
I'm going Odegaard, Tell, and Johnson. Or sorry, Sonny, Tell, and Johnson, and then bring on Odegaard second half. Probably move, depending on how well Tell does, move Sonny into the 9. But I would start probably because you need a focal point. And for me, Sonny, just with the way that we play and the fact that we don't put the ball down into the channels for him to run onto, he's just, while I like him as a number 9 in certain instances, we just don't utilize him when we play him as a 9 because we still try and put balls into him that he's never going to win. So I just think from an energy point of view, the fact that it is RZ, the fact that it's not, he's not going up against a William Saliba and a Gabriel, I would start him in the 9 and just at least see how he goes. Because ultimately, I think you've got to play Johnson and Sonny.
Are you happy with that front three, by the way, with Son, Tell, and Johnson?
No, I mean, I'd love Solanke to be. I mean, I'd rather Son, Solanke, and Johnson isn't bad. I mean, it's not the greatest front line that I've ever seen, but it's not awful. Sonny.
Can you trust Johnson? Do you trust Johnson to do a job out there on the right hand side?
I trust him. I think his movement in the box and his ability to be able to get onto the end of things is actually a little bit. I think people underestimate that. As far as actually taking on his man, having a final ball, he's left wanting a lot of the time. Like there's so much room for improvement. But I mean, there's a lot of people that have, or a lot of players that have made careers out of being one-trick ponies. And if he gets 20, 25 goals this season, like I would be hard pushed to complain, given as that's huge. That's huge. And I said it at the beginning. I said, so long as he beats his numbers from last year, and like I haven't got a problem with him. But he still does need to do a lot more in terms of assisting.
Yeah, I hear it. What do you think the most important position is then for Spurs in the summer? Because we've been linked with a lot of positions, but where would you see?
My starting lineup, I'll throw out I'll say my starting lineup and I'll put question marks where I think they genuinely are. I think Vicario's fine. I honestly prefer Spence over Porro, but right back's fine. I think centre backs, we're all right, depending on whether Romero goes. We definitely need cover. I would say definitely cover left centre back, left back. If you can get somebody that does a really good job of covering both of those, I wouldn't have a problem getting one person for both those positions. I think the way that Archie Gray, this is a real tough one for Archie Gray, right? Because there are people that say he's played more minutes, so therefore the projection is arguably further along than it would have been had he not played. The counter argument to that being he still hasn't played in what you would consider to be his natural position. So is he going to flourish in a 6?
But just on that 6 question as well, because a lot of fans have spoke about that number 6 role being important, and Ange says that he doesn't play with a number 6.
Right.
So
this is the problem, right? Because everybody says, we need that monster 6. And I've been one of those people. Yeah. But given the fact that Ange has said he doesn't necessarily play with a 6, and then people go, oh my God, they're like, what are we doing? Like, I think it comes down to, and this is where people have a problem with Ange, right? It comes down to the coaching. If you're not going to play with that 6 that is just going to hold the base of the midfield, then you better be damn sure that everybody on that training pitch is being coached so that when somebody does go, like earlier when we were talking, when Danzo does make that charge forward, you've got to have at least two people that know, okay, well, I need to go in and cover that. And then if that person then, if right back then covers right centre back, then right wing needs to know, well, I need to drop back and cover right back. And if necessary, striker then needs to go and cover right wing. So everybody needs to know exactly where they're going to be if you are going to play this kind of risky football. And Ange plays risky football. When he first got when he first got hired, I remember having conversations with people and saying, we are going to blow some teams out of the water sometimes. And unfortunately, we're probably going to get blown out of the water because it's a risky way of playing. And we've seen it. When the midfield collapses, it really collapses. But again, from my delusional perspective, I have to put that down to it has to get better. The more these players play together and the more they're coached, I would have to see an improvement the back end of this season. If we go out to RZ and we fumble the rest of the season and we're like 13-15, 13-15, win, lose, draw, win, lose, draw, win, lose, draw, then you've got to question it.
So the reason why I mentioned, and it's good that you brought Archie Gray up, is because we are looking at, irrespective of what Ange wants, I think the club are looking at that type of profile in terms of a number 6, a defensive midfielder. It goes by the name of Hugo Larsson, who is Swedish. And Langer obviously knows the Scandinavian market well because that's his background. Funny enough, Hugo Larsson, to me, profiles similar to what Archie Gray is meant to be in terms of his height and his builds. And I call him a Swedish Adam Wharton, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Adam Wharton, very similar in build and shape, and he's got 5 goals this season, 3 in the Bundesliga, 2 in the Europa League. He's a Swedish international. He's 20 years old. He's 21 in June. And he plays in the midfield area and he plays a defensive midfielder as well. I read somewhere he might be costing around 60 million. Transfer Market have him at roughly 35 mil, but I think he'll cost
people are going to call me crazy. He gives me Carrick vibes.
Yeah, that as well gives me Carrick vibes as well. Frankfurt, he came from Malmo as well in Sweden as well. I've featured him before on this channel, but since you've been linked with him again, I'll bring him up again. Plays in a different system, a bit like Wharton. Plays in a 3-1-4-2. I know they play with a 3-4-3. But yeah, similar position. Sometimes he does play in a 3-4-3 on the Frankfurt, but there's his heat map. Defensive half, you can see he's quite busy in that part. But yeah, you see some of his stats. Interceptions are high, blocks are high, so that's his defensive work. And pass completion is quite high. Everything else is quite meaty, if I'm being honest, quite low. But looked at his stats a bit closer. I put him against Tielemans. He's a defensive midfielder or box-to-box type. Wharton, Bentancur as well. Cardoso, who we've heavily been linked with as well.
And don't we own his left leg or something?
Yeah. Still, I like a lot. I think still as a top player, I would definitely go in for him. Larson again, shots per 90 on target against Wharton. Wharton fares better than them, but better than Bentancur. But here's some of his shots here as we bring it in. You can see the distance. He executes them from quite a distance from far away. You can see there, bottom corner, lace of the boot as well. Here's another one as well. You can see the distance again. Gets out of his feet, natural finish. Catches it quite well. Short passing, second. Long passing, he's about third. Attempted passing, again, third. Fourth on expected assist, but here he is again. 4 players around him. First touch around in that D, and is able to play a pass, a line splitting pass that opens up the pitch. Again, in this area, you've got 2 players running towards him. He gets his head up. He's able to play a nice little chip ball into the box to find one of the players. Again, on the edge of the D, pressing well, picks the ball up, has that vision to do a reverse pass around the corner to pick out a teammate. Something we struggle to do, I feel like. Some players, we don't really disguise the passes. And I think that's something he does well in terms of finding his teammates. Again, versatility, is able to get on the ball as well from that kind of fullback position and switch the play. We don't have many players that open up the pitch there. Here's his vision again, sees where the ball's to play, plays it around the corner, and is able to play a nice ball there. And again, he's in that final third. First time header, assist, and it's a great finish there by who. Larson again, that little wide area again, just demonstrating his vision. Nice loft the ball into the box, able to pick up a player. This is something that Spurs lacking, in my opinion. He's able to, get in behind defenders as well. So he mixes it up. It's not just balls over the top or switches of play. He's allowed to get behind that defender and do a nice little cutback. Again, vision, gets his head up. First time, knows what he wants to do with the ball. He's in good position as well. And the thing as well about defensive midfielder, it's good to know where to be as well, because he recovers the ball high up, wins the ball high up the pitch, and is able to recycle the ball in that attacking phase. The willingness to recover the ball as well. He's able to get down, make that challenge. So there's some of his challenges against some of the other players as well. Blocks, tackles won. Again, here he is recovering the ball. He's able to get this ball and win that challenge, get that ball there, sliding challenge.
I don't know what they're feeding these kids in Sweden, man. But
this might have to be,
because these are like, if you were just looking at a distance, I mean, or you squinted a little bit, it could be Bergvall again. Like they're very, very similar as well. They're covering a lot of ground. They pop up, left wing spraying it to the right and vice versa.
Yeah. I would say, no, for me, it's a thing where he profiles a little bit different to like a Bergvall. I'd say it's the passing, the vision, and his ability to create passing angles. I think that's a bit more impressive when he's able to find that passing angle and then find that pass. A lot of our players, the reason why our centre backs struggle sometimes and are forced to go long is because the movement off the ball isn't there from our midfielders. Bentancur's movement off the ball to create an angle, sometimes he needs to drop off into that fullback position where you see Maddison do. If Bentancur had better off the ball movement, you wouldn't have to see Maddison drop into that position all the time, because he'd be able to stay higher up. And someone like against Man City, we struggled against the mid block. I don't know if you realize that when City put a line of 2 lines of defense in the middle of the pitch, we ran out of ideas and we were forced to go along. But a player like Larson or even Adam Wharton, who I do prefer, Adam Wharton, he'll be able to get it in tight areas where 2 or 3 players around him and still be able to find a forward pass. That's what I like about it's a different profile to what we have compared to like Bentancur and Bissouma. Yeah. And I know Bissouma's been linked with moves away to Marseille and also to Crystal Palace. Funny thing is, though, I could see Bissouma going to Crystal Palace
and balling out.
Yeah,
right.
You know what I'm saying? I could definitely see that, man. So it's really frustrating. But yeah, man, I just think, I think Spurs, if we're going to be serious and we're going to spend big, me personally, I would spend it in that kind of midfield area. What would you say, Marlon? What would you go big on in the actual area for Spurs in the summer?
Consistency somewhere. A consistent position that we're going to be consistent, because we don't need to spend massive. I think everyone's hitting the nail on the head earlier. It's going to be wages. And the players that command the biggest wages are the ones that are consistent and can command that. And they go, yeah, I'm worth you paying me. Like, let's take Perisic. Perisic was consistently, those crosses were coming into the box and putting everyone on the back foot. He wasn't quick. He wasn't quick. He was probably playing in the wrong position as well at some point. And actually, it's unfortunate Ange didn't get a year with him, because I think he would have done quite well in an Ange on the left at the time, especially with Son playing up top. But I just think for us, it's got to be experience. You've brought all the young players in, sprinkle something around them for next season. Whether it's look, we might be able to go. I think a winger we can go young, but not too young. But the rest of the positions, like the covering centre back and the another midfielder, it needs to be someone who's established for me. Someone who's out there that's got minutes behind them. We're not sitting there going, is it going to work out or not?
Would you say that was that be Premier League then? Was it a Premier League player? Are you experience over profile, or are you profile over experience? That's what I want to know as well.
So let's take Rodri. Yeah, I'm going to use Rodri as a prime example. He came from a club. Yes, he was experienced in that position, but he just wasn't proven in the Premier League. But it wasn't a massive risk because you knew what you were kind of getting. Whereas, so it doesn't have to be, if you're getting a Champions League quality type player, which Manchester City were at the time, something we kind of need. Like, let's take Aston Villa right now. Aston Villa are a prime example who are literally on the brink of their wages. They're over. They've got to cut it. But yet, the 3 players they brought into this window, especially in the Champions League campaign, was Disasi, who no one at Spurs wanted, but has got experience behind him in Europe. Asensio, who just wasn't pulling trees down at PSG, but seems to have gone into Aston Villa and is literally exactly what Spurs need and tell someone to come in and hit the ground running. Yeah. And Rashford, who I said I would have liked at Spurs, and everyone said, no, you can't take Rashford, this, that, and the other, because I just saw that he needed an out at Manchester United. And Anthony's proven that. Sancho, again, half and half proved that, but Sancho proved that when he went back to Dortmund. Some players just need to get out of Old Trafford. And that's the difference between Villa are trying to, they're trying to get back in the Champions League and saw that they were missing out. They needed experience.
Would you say Solanke's that then? When we bought Solanke, would you say
Solanke was that? Solanke, for me, Solanke was a perfect kind of signing for what we needed, but he shouldn't have been the only one.
Right. There should have been 2, if not arguably 3 players of that sort of caliber. Like, I would have liked to have seen somebody 25 to 27 that had some European experience, like I said earlier, that had 55, 60 games in their legs. Because we went into the season with, 2 18-year-olds that maybe could play, maybe played what? Archie Gray played 42 times last year. Yeah. And that's a lot for an 18-year-old at that point.
Let's take the Archie Gray and Bergvall argument.
All right, go on.
Let's take Bergvall. Yeah. As soon as he's been put next to Bentancur, have we seen better performances out of Bergvall recently? No matter how bad Bentancur's been, Bergvall's been a bit more consistent because he's got someone next to him, right? Where Sarr last year had Basuma, but he's not had Basuma here this year. Now let's take Archie Gray. Everyone's been raving about Archie Gray since Danso came in.
All right, listen to this. Yeah, check this out. If we buy more teenagers, yeah, because by the sounds of it, you want experience, right? Someone that's done it, and you don't have to guess so much. By the sounds of it, over profile, yeah. If we bring in a teenager, not teenager, but 19-year-old, 20-year-old, and we buy 2 or 3 of them, and Ange doesn't say anything,
he won't. I don't expect him to. I would never expect him to. I would never put that on Ange.
So you basically say then, right? Ange just basically takes whatever he's given and he gets
every other manager's done it so far, and the ones that have spoken out have all then left the job a couple of weeks later.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Fair enough.
So every manager that's come out after Spurs, every manager that's come out, like Conte, when he came out before that, I remember Conte saying that summer, and we all knew and was like, no, that's not like Conte. When he came out and said he was happy with that window, and he wasn't. He clearly wasn't.
So does that mean then Ange has to get the best of what he's given them? Clearly.
Yeah, Poch. Yeah. It's all Poch. It's Poch all over again.
So then he has to be like elite at coaching, because some people would say, like Jay was saying, we've actually got some decent players here. Like, do you know what I mean? So that means...
he doesn't even necessarily need to be elite at coaching. He just needs to be elite at putting a team together that can coach. Because we've got more coaches than I can shake a stick at. I'd be honest with you, I can't name half of them, unfortunately, but we do. But if that's the way that Ange and the club are going to go, then Ange needs to be elite at getting all of those people in all those positions to coach exactly what he wants, and then he needs to be elite at putting it all together.
Yeah.
Because if we believe what we're being told, then He does. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say he sits at his desk at the training ground and watches it on CCTV, because I think that's just hyperbolic stuff to fit a narrative. But
Look at the goggles
by
like
the
that,
same token, I do think he kind of gives them a little bit of kind of room to, this is what I want, this is how I want it done, and I guess the proof will be in the pudding, or whether he's given time to be able to do it. Because I've gone on record as saying that I think, given the fact that you have players on 5-year contracts and you have coaches or managers on 2-year contracts, I just think it's one of those things where it's so hard to see the end of a project because clubs don't have patience. But I've been on record as saying I think I'd give him another 2 years to see the project out. Unless it
another 2
absolutely
years.
capitulates. I mean, he's on a 4-year contract. So if you take into consideration that if you do sack him and bring somebody else in, unless that somebody else hits the ground running, they're going to need another 18 months and another 3 transfer windows. So for me, unless you see absolute capitulation and you see a squad that really doesn't want to play for him, I would see the project through. I mean, I think the problem with Tottenham is that they haven't, since they got rid of Poch, which I don't think they should have done. And if we could have given the money that we've given to Postecoglou, to Pochettino, and actually just continued that project, I would love to have seen that. But we went from Poch to a win-now manager. We got a crisis of confidence and then went back to like a Nuno thing because we didn't know what we were doing. And then we went to a Conte thing because we needed a win-now manager. And now we're back to a project. Like, if we're back to a project and the club want to come out and say, look, we are going to back this manager through thick and thin, we are going to give him what he needs to succeed, I would give him another 2 years. Whether that will happen, probably not. But I'm just fed up with the chopping and changing. And what I don't want is for us to sack him and then bring in another win-now manager or somebody else that wants to change another 10 players, for us to all sit there, or for me especially, to sit here and go, well, this player has only played 14.
What if it's not that drastic? Like, what if it's a thing where we've got the philosophy now, and we've got the idea, like Langer's basically driving the ship, really, if you think about it. He's the director of football. He's the one that picks he picks the coaches. So what if they want to move to a coach now rather than a manager? So Langer's now got more control. He's literally picking the players, and then the coach is literally just coaching the players and improving them. And we keep that philosophy where it's attacking football, we're on the front foot. Do you understand?
Yeah. I mean, if I see it, so long as
a little bit more. So it's not too, because I feel like some people think, it's going to be a whole reset. We're going to have to start all over again. And I think that's a lot of fear for like Ange, people that like Ange, that, oh my days, we're going to go completely the opposite direction. And then,
but I think big up to Sean Butler, innit? Sean Butler on Spurs Talk Show. He has the thing where he says, like, Ange is the manager before the manager. Like, we basically had to kind of, whether you like it or
way
not.
Of saying Ange out, by the way. He does not say it. That's his way of saying it.
Well, you just had to kind of, we had to do such a pivot, and now maybe that pivot is a little bit too extreme, and maybe we do need to come back a little bit more centered. So I get where you're coming from, and maybe in my head I have kind of made it that extreme, and maybe it doesn't need to be. But I also do kind of struggle. I do struggle a little bit. I know there are a lot of coaches out there. I know there are a lot of good coaches out there, but everyone's on the Iraola train, and I've gone on record as saying, like, yes, what he's done is good, but if you'd have turned around a couple of years ago, prior to him having this wonderful season at Bournemouth, and if you'd have put 2 resumes or 2 CVs down in front of you, and you'd have seen a guy that essentially won titles everywhere he went, and then you saw a guy who got to the semi-final of a Copa del Rey and kept a team in the Spanish First Division, and then finished, they went to another team and got their best top half finish, which was still, or their best finish, which was still bottom half of the La Liga. Like, if you'd have put those 2 resumes in front of me, I'm sorry, I'm going for the guy that's won a championship in every country he's been, because it shows perseverance and it shows an ability to be able to
But
put your project or put your hands on something and make it work. Whereas
Didn't Iriola get them promoted though? Didn't Iriola get them promoted and then
no, somebody else got
and
them
then
promoted, and then that coach got fired and he kept them up.
But did you not see it? Do you think a lot of Spurs fans, the reason why they are looking at Areola and what you pointed out is everything is basically Poch had done before he turned up at Southampton.
that's what I was going to say as well.
Right,
and that's where the similarities come from.
That's absolutely, and also if you then take into account that while we're looking at that over there, thinking, oh, that reminds us of somewhere we've been, but we were doing that in a period of time where everybody was really, really unhappy with Spurs, right? Like everybody's really, really unhappy that we went out of both the cups, and I get that. But if we'd have been sitting in sixth place and we'd have gone out in the semi-finals to Liverpool and we've gone out in the fifth round to Aston Villa, like we do in most other seasons, if we'd have been playing pretty good football and sitting in fifth or sixth place, people wouldn't be batting an eyelid. It's because the situation is so bad and so dire that the situation is so bad and so dire that everything is awful. And he's doing such a good job over there that it was a case of, well, we just want him to come in and do that here. And it's just kind of, I think it's naive for people to think that he would just be able to come in and do. And I'm not suggesting, anyone here is naive, but there have been people that have been like,
it works both ways because at the same time, we as fans will look at players and think they're the best thing since sliced bread. Like any player that comes to Spurs and puts a Spurs shirt on, or any player that's linked with Spurs and then that comes, like for example, Tell's the best example. Tell coming in, lots of people defend Tell because he's a Spurs player. But had Tell been at Manchester United and done that, I think the energy would be slightly different. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it comes back to the whole Timo Werner situation. When Timo Werner was just about to sign for Man United, every Spurs fan was taking the living piss.
Yeah.
And as soon as he signed for Spurs, we were like, oh, okay, now we've got to try and support this boy.
Exactly. I think it's that those we do have those tinted vision when it comes to our club that this player is going to be amazing. Like Vuskovic, like at the moment, there's so much hype on him, and he's scoring a lot of goals for a defender. But
can he actually defend?
But this is what I'm going to ask. Do you know what I mean? And also the league that he's in, right? Cool. I don't know. Like people cross the Dutch league. Do you know what I'm saying? Is he not at a lower level than the Dutch league at the moment?
This is where us Brits definitely look at our nose down, because actually what Drew was saying earlier, he said he'd pick the one that's won in other countries, but then if I serve the other countries to you and then put Areola next to you, you'd probably go, I'd actually take more credit from surviving in the Spanish league than you are winning in Scotland and Japan. And that's just the way the way we are as Brits. We look.
I've tried to look. Yeah, I've tried to look at that situation so subjectively, but I do completely take that point. If you show me, okay, it's Japan and it's Scotland, but then there's a part of me that wants to still turn around and be like, yeah, but look what he did. Like he didn't just go there and finish mid-table or finish like 10th. He went there and imposed himself and actually got them to win things. So, there's got to be. I do have to be hand on heart and say there's got to be something said for that. And again, if you'd have put those two resumes in front of me, as a Tottenham fan, just as a generic Tottenham fan, are we really taking a manager that finished in the bottom half of La Liga, irregardless of whether you were going to take Ange?
So if Ange finishes in the bottom half, then shouldn't he be sacked then on that same merit?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, no, yeah. Because it depends on what you're striving for, right? If you're suggesting that Tottenham absolutely have to finish top half, regardless of whether you see any kind of progression or not, then yes, absolutely, he has to be fired. But what my point was, or the point that I was trying to make based on that, is that at the time we were looking for a manager, and as Tottenham fans, we have these certain expectation of our team, right? So irrespective of who the names were, if you were looking at those two CVs and you were looking at potential, you would certainly have said at the time, I want the guy that's been and won everywhere, as opposed to the guy that has a couple of bottom half finishes in La Liga. Like, surely, just logically, from a football fan, you would say, I want that guy because it shows that he has the ability. But then you look at it and you go, well, one guy's 55 or 60 and one guy's 30, just about learning his trade. So which direction do you want to go? Because there's an argument that if you chose the CV with the cups on it, as opposed to the CV that shows some promising progression, then arguably you just chose another win now manager, as opposed to going down the route of the project.
I was going to say, how
Ariola's
young is young?
35, 40?
35, 40. How young is young? How old is old? Like, what would you say, like, is the right age for a manager to come and manage Spurs? If we're going to go into that.
50.
Dude, no idea, dude.
Bang in the middle. 50.
You're saying basically because he's what do you say, he's 35, you're saying, yeah? Is that
I think Iriola's like 41, 42.
Yeah,
he's 42.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Because Eddie Howe was 47. So their age gap's not that big. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's the reason why I mentioned it. I thought, does that serve relevance to whether we should be looking at a manager in terms of experience? Because I think Eddie Howe was fairly new, like when he was at Bournemouth, wasn't he?
He was at Bournemouth and Burnley.
He got them relegated, right?
Right.
And then he came back with Newcastle, and then obviously he's done a job there now. Obviously, everyone could say that Eddie Howe's done a great job.
And this is the thing, right?
Okay.
Right. And this is the thing, right? Hindsight's a great thing. Like, if you'd have asked me if I want Eddie Howe after he'd been relegated with Bournemouth, then do I really want Eddie Howe that's relegated with Bournemouth? Regardless of the promise that he showed, and regardless of the fact that, media outlets are waxing lyrical and he's the next best English coach, do I want relegated Eddie Howe? Not particularly.
It's like McKenna, isn't it, really?
Yeah, do I want promising Eddie Howe that has got 10 wins on the bounce and is making Newcastle look like an absolute machine? Well, yeah, I'd take that Eddie Howe. But there's no guarantee that Eddie Howe then translates into this team.
It goes back to with Ange. If he finishes like not in the bottom side of the table, bottom half, the bottom table. What would you call it?
Bottom of the table.
Bottom half of the table. Thank you. Sorry, I don't know why I was so scrambled.
It's late, Ash.
Yeah, wouldn't you have the same energy then? Who would want bottom half table for Ange? But Ange could still get jobs. Technically, he should be able to get a top job because of the way he plays. A bit like my man from Bayern Munich.
But Ash is
Nagelsmann.
Yeah.
Not Nagelsmann. He used to play for managed Burnley.
Vincent Kompany.
Yeah, but the thing is, Tottenham now have become that club. It doesn't matter who manages them, that you won't become tainted, because everyone looks at Spurs and sees as a bigger problem than the manager.
Right.
You can clearly see that now, because I know people are taking the mick because I think Napoli are second, Mourinho is doing Mourinho things. He's won the trophy since, and Nuno, no matter what we want to say about him, he's sitting in third in the Premier League in a season that's been up and down, and
also went to Saudi and won the league, right?
Yeah. So everyone. So for Ange, this does nothing for him. His reputation is not in tatters. People will just know when they know what type of football they're going to play. And this is going back to the whole, when you said about who would you want to win now, manager or Areola. Actually, you've got to look at it now, because that's one part, but then you've got to look at what they're working with. And if you're looking at the way Spurs work, actually, we're looking at the bigger picture. Areola probably fits the ball better, as long as he's trying to avoid the relegation, because he seems, we're looking at it, he must be a great coach, if that makes sense. if he's doing it on a limited budget and everything like that,
budget,
instead of the man that's winning everything with the two best teams in the country, when if you probably put Ange at Man City or Liverpool, maybe he still gets the same end result, and he still probably does go and win the league and whatnot, and because they're going to give him a pot of money and what they want to do with him. Whereas if he comes to a Spurs or maybe a Bournemouth, let's take Bournemouth for now. Maybe he's not going to produce the same results because he hasn't got the best team. So you are probably looking at an Areola where actually he suits the ball better than what Ange does at the time, just hypothetically.
Well, wait, Marlon, just on that, do you think Ange is a project manager or is he a win now manager of what you just said then? What do you think? Or is he a mix of between the two?
I think he was a mix between the two, but he was also the attacking manager that they wanted to get away from Conte. And they was
Conte, Nuno, and Mourinho, right? Because you had three kind of back to back.
And the problem you've got now is that we're trying to change. And we're trying to change the philosophy that actually they've created over the last 5 years, and that's going to be very hard to break.
All right. So Jordan said Bournemouth have quality players. Would you say also then that the director of football from Bournemouth's end or their scouts are better than what Spurs have then?
No, I think what Bournemouth have done, they've got a way of working.
Coach brought out the best in the players.
They've got a way of working. Because if they took Ange, they don't not get. I'm sorry, but they're not going to probably get the same results. Maybe I don't know. Maybe the culture's different, but I don't think they're getting the same results because it's too much of an attacking way of football. And no one knew that Solanke was going to be top goal scorer. Well, their top goal scorer and do well last year. In fact, they sold him, and Kluivert suddenly come out of nowhere.
But this is it, because the season before that, when Gary O'Neill was in charge at Bournemouth, Solanke was not pulling up those numbers.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden, Solanke, I saw the interview, and he said, I pushed Solanke further forward. Now, Solanke, for me, he's not getting as many chances as he was at Bournemouth because he's slightly deeper. He's doing a different job to what he was doing at Bournemouth. Yeah. Kluivert was at Roma. People weren't rating it. Yeah, there you go. People weren't rating Kluivert when he was at Roma or Ajax. They were saying, he's poor. He's come to Bournemouth, and now he's having one of his best seasons. Do you understand? He's all of a sudden.
But let's take all the ex-Brighton players. Let's take every single player that Brighton have sold. Which one of them is turning up trees since they left Brighton?
Well, McAllister, or you mean
proper? No, but McAllister's in and out. Even though, to be fair, he's doing well. Don't get me wrong.
Well, yeah, I think McAllister's doing well.
But compared to all the players they've sold, when you look at
Casado's doing all right now.
Who?
Casado? No,
not really. Chelsea.
I mean, he's doing all right, but is he 100 million doing all right?
All right, cool, fair enough. I mean,
Kukureya. I mean, he's taken a while to settle. But is he doing 65 million?
Yeah, but so then if we're going to put price tag on people, then you got to put a price tag on Solanke then, because I wouldn't put a price tag on the fullback who you just said, Cucurella. Yeah, I wouldn't. Cucurella. I wouldn't put a price. I look at him as a player, and I'm like, what he's doing for Chelsea, actually, the way he's inverting, what he's contributing. He scored a goal in his last game as well. He's providing something that another fullback like Chilwell could never do. Do you know what I mean? Technically, he's performing well. Well, I think he is. I don't know.
I wouldn't say he's performing to the level that I'd expect.
He was at Brighton. Okay.
Where he was at Brighton. His season at Brighton, that season he had at Brighton, everyone looked at him and went, wow. But his last two seasons at Chelsea, I wouldn't say they were the same as he was at Brighton. Maybe he's going to reach there potentially. I don't know. Caicedo's the same. Caicedo's been inconsistent for Chelsea.
Would you say to stay away from Brighton players then, you guys? If you were linked to a Brighton player, would you say to stay away? Because they're system players then. They only work well within the system.
So it's going to be really interesting when Matoma goes, because Matoma's probably the one asset that Brighton have right now that most people want in Europe. I know he's been injured. He was injured for a long period. Was it last season?
It was last season, and people thought he dropped off. Yeah,
and he dropped off a little bit. Yeah, but it'd be very interesting when he goes, if he has the same issues that most other Brighton players have had. Like McAllister, he just went from strength to strength because he ended up winning the World Cup, and I think now his confidence then grew, which then he went, no, I want to become an established Liverpool player. Yeah, and that happened. But whether he's the main, if they went and lost Salah and when they lose Van Dijk and they lose Trent, are we seeing a different McAllister?
Yeah, this is the thing.
This
Yeah.
is the thing.
It's an interesting conversation. I think when you're buying players, this is what I think. You should be profiling players that play similar to your club. That makes sense.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, because
Like
sometimes.
Southampton and Liverpool.
So for example, yeah, would you lot, because Eze doesn't really play in the formation that we have. I don't know
Yeah.
if Palace play like how we play. Do you know what I mean? One thing I'll say about Ange Ball though, which I didn't think this would happen, we're a lot more direct than I thought we would be. Do you know what I mean? We're a lot more.
Yeah.
So
I feel like Eze works in Pochettino's 4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
because
But
I was going to say
he doesn't work in Ange's 4-3-3.
4-3-3 exactly. I think Eze, what Ange would do is play him out wide, and I'm like, no.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can't put Eze
doesn't
where
work.
Son is, or
Right.
where you have Werner. You would kill him.
Right.
Do you understand? I remember when Eze played as a wing back for England, and he was out wide, and he didn't look as half as good as he should do.
This is the same problem we have with Madison, though.
So yeah, this is
I'll
it.
tell you, I have a slightly hot take. Let me get
Go
your
on.
guys'. I've always, and I'll stand by this, prime Pochettino team with Carl Walker, Danny Rose, Vertonghen, Alderweireld, Lloris, that back 4 or 5 with all the talent we had going forward. I think Postecoglou wins something with that team. That's how good of a coach I think Postecoglou is. I think he gets that team over the line where Pochettino, I don't think, did get that team over the line.
Hamstring.
And that's
injuries would be a major issue with that team.
Hamstring.
Well, I mean, possibly, potentially.
You got Danny
You
Rose.
would tell Wanyama to push high up the pitch. He said, Wanyama.
Yeah, Danny Rose. Vertonghen got injured that season.
Wanyama, I need you in the box. I don't need you sitting.
Yeah, Wanyama. Yeah,
it just goes to show, guy. You bring up a really interesting point, Ash, with things like, because obviously just going back to Iraola and Bournemouth, like they're doing phenomenally well. Yeah. But he's got there's lightning in a bottle there. Like there's some magic dust there where that just seems to be happening. And you know what? I'll eat humble pie if 2-3 years from now he's still pulling up trees and he's still doing bits and he's able to lose a couple of players or lose Justin Kluivert this year and get another player in and they can just he seamlessly just fits this together. Fantastic. But I just, if you took Philip Billings out of Bournemouth and put him in Spurs, does he do the job that he's doing at Bournemouth for Spurs? And also, do Spurs fans not get up in arms because we bought Philip Billings and not Billing Aldo or Billing Aldino or something? Do you know what I mean?
But he dropped him. He dropped Billing. Billing's not their starter no more. Do you understand?
Oh, is he?
He's at Napoli for a start.
Huh?
Billing's at Napoli.
Yeah, he's at Napoli.
Yeah.
Oh, is he at Napoli now?
He's with
just goes to show what I know. Well, just insert.
Oh, no, this is it. This is like
here,
Spurs. Like as a Spurs, I do it as well. Like I will look at Spurs players and I'll put them in a different mold to the rest of the Premier League players. And I'm looking at Bournemouth. I look at Crystal Palace even. Crystal Palace. I looked at Sarr at Watford. I used to like Sarr at Watford. Yeah.
Ibrahim Sarr. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he obviously went to Crystal Palace. He didn't start off well. And then the centre back, Lacroix, his name is. He played at Werder Bremen as well. I liked him.
We looked at him, didn't we?
Yeah, we looked at him. We did. And I liked him. At first, that man was stinking out the gaff. I was like, oh, man, maybe I got it wrong on Sarr. Maybe I got wrong on that centre back as well. But it just took a while for Glasner to get his ideas across. Now, I think Crystal Palace have gone on a 5 or 6 game undefeated. It's gone form anyway. The last 5 or 6 games have gone on form. And now I'm seeing the players work really well. I'm seeing Mateta. Before Glasner came in there, I think he was when Mateta had hair, when he had that cane roll, he had like 10 or 12 goals. Well, since he cleaned the hair off, he's got the bald head. He's doing the Marlon look. He's banging goals. He's got, I think, joint top scorer with this year, with Mo Salah. I think he's got like 8 goals in the last, 10 or 8 games. Do you know what I'm saying? He's on fire.
Ashley in the chat makes a really good point as well, which a lot of people seem to forget. Not the same pressure playing for Bournemouth 1 game a week.
Well, this is the point I was making about Basuma, because I was like, if Basuma goes to Palace, does he have less pressure and does he perform better? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't know if I agree with this pressure question, because when Harry Kane left Spurs, he said
There
Bayern
is no
Munich,
pressure.
he said there's no pressure at Spurs. At Bayern Munich, you must win. Do you understand?
Mhm.
So I'm like, is there a pressure really? Levy's coming out giving them like the watches during the
The old finalist.
fight.
Do
Well
you
done.
reckon they
Yeah,
got Casio semi-final watches?
do you know what I'm
Do you reckon
saying?
they got?
So it's like, I
Yeah, but
don't know.
is it? Maybe it's not the pressure inside the club; it's the pressure from us more than anything,
Yeah,
because our expectation
that's
as
true.
fans is
That's
going to be
true.
different
You're
to
right.
a Bournemouth and even a Palace, where Palace and Bournemouth. Actually, it's kind of right. Are only looking to survive and finish mid-table,
Hmm.
where we've been promised the promised land of Champions League, and we're expecting full
So
place.
do you think all the players' heads went then this season in terms of like the expectation, what was expected of them, and that's why we dropped down as well as the injuries? Do you know what I mean?
Now
Or,
it's down to the squad we have in the recruitment that the board handed Ange a short straw, definitely a
Yeah.
short straw
But
compared
there's
to
a
what he had last year.
lot to do with squad management,
Yeah,
definitely. He was left short. Not that I don't. I'm hesitant to say that he wasn't backed, because you don't spend the amount of money, because admittedly Spurs have done a pretty good job the last 4 or 5 years of spending some money compared to what we have been doing in the past. But yeah, you're right. Like, he was he went into the season at least a couple of players short that had
because
not even necessarily just Premier League experience. It could have been European experience, but
he admitted like he's like you had the soul youth leaders and creating your own leaders, and then
yeah.
he admitted that actually, oh no, the senior
Actually, I should
players
have.
are letting me down. I
Yeah.
should have, like, so that's what I mean. Like, people say,
But
oh,
this is why I can understand, Ash, why people get a bit frustrated with
mm,
Ange, because like you say, at the beginning of the season, and I've said this as well, I said it on a couple of shows, like, he was adamant he wanted young players that he could mold into
yeah,
his system,
right then.
because 27, 28, 29-year-olds, if you read between the lines, were kind of a bit prima donna-y, and he
Yeah,
didn't want to have to deal with them. And
right.
then, yeah, like you say, we get halfway through the season and we get coming up to the January transfer window, and all of a sudden it's, well, I would like to sprinkle some experience. What? You mean those 27, 28-year-olds that are prima donnas that you didn't want to work with at the
This is
beginning of
what
the
I'm saying. I'm
season?
just trying to be fair,
Yeah.
bro. It's not even
Yeah,
like
no,
I'm trying to
no, I'll
make
call a
narratives
spade a
or
spade. I get it.
yeah. So I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it. Like, is he backed? Is he not backed? Is it his decision? Is it not his decision? Like, because I understand the whole archetype, shall I say, where he's like trying to change the culture of the club, saying it's all on me. I'm not trying to be like Conte and blame the club or throw players under the bus. And that's
apart from
why
Werner.
Spurs fans, well, apart from Spence and
Yeah.
apart from Werner, you know what I mean? When he was like, Werner, no. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But obviously, apart from that, he was the one like saying, no, everyone that comes through the door, it's on me. Do you know what I mean? Anyone that signs is on me, blah, blah, blah. Some
Yeah.
people are saying like he's just saying that, but then sometimes I'm like, I've kind of listened to what he's been saying, and I
Right.
don't
Well,
know.
there's two ways of taking that, right, Ash? So
Yeah,
you can turn around and say, or Ange can turn around and say, every player is vetted by me, or nobody comes in without my say so. Well, that one way of looking at that is he went out and bought Werner.
mm,
Another way of looking at that is he got given a list of players
mm,
because the club actually turned around, having said, you can have X, Y, and Z. They
mm,
actually probably maybe recanted a little bit and were like, well, actually, maybe it's kind of a little bit 1, 2, 3. We can't quite do this. So
mm.
if you need warm bodies, here's 2 or 3 that you could choose from. And he went, I guess we'll get Werner because he's the best of a bad bunch. And then to save face in the press conference, because he's not going to come out and turn around and say that dick upstairs has let me down. He's
Yeah,
going
I
to
hear
say,
that. I hear that. I just the profile of Werner reminds me of Johnson. Let me explain that. Because Johnson can finish and Werner can't. But what I mean is, they like to attack the space. They don't like.
Werner can be a player.
Well, yeah, Werner could be, but yeah. No, Werner can be a player, and Johnson can't really. But what I mean is, they're transitional players.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's what I
They're
mean.
both Ange players. As
They're both
in,
Ange players. They're direct. Yeah,
they
this is
are
what I'm
direct.
saying. So this
They
is what
are.
I'm
You can
thinking. Like,
tell.
I know what you're saying, Drew, about
If you could put
your
both of them
buddy.
together and make a player, you might have half decent one.
Yeah, you would.
know?
You would. Yeah, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and that's why I actually feel that was his picking. That was his one. That it's a bit like, look, I could say the same for Slot. Yeah, not Slot.
Mhm.
Klopp said that he wanted Nunes. Yeah, Edward was against it. He was like, no, I want Nunes. Nunes is a donkey. Do you understand? He can't finish. He needs
Yeah.
about 10
Yeah.
chances before he hits the back of the net. So I just feel like that Werner one kind of is on him because you could just see it's kind of an Ange player. Do you know what I
But
mean?
yeah, but with
Would you
Nunes,
not think it was like a? Do you not think it was like more of a case of, well, I really want Johan Bakayoko, but I can't get Johan Bakayoko because the list in front of me is basically Adama Traore, Timo Werner, insert other player's name here. That is basically like that's the choice you've got, and like pick one because you need warm body. Like I don't necessarily know. I don't know. I would hate to think that if there was a choice of 10 or 15 other players there, that he went out of his way to pick Timo Werner, not just once, but twice. Like,
This
if
is
you're
it.
saying that
This
he
is
did
it.
that, then I seriously have to question
Not once,
my.
twice.
Yeah, I have to question.
do you know what? The first time you could understand why he took the risk. You could
Yeah.
completely
Right.
understand why he took
Yeah,
the
you're
risk.
trying to
No
say
matter how you thought you could
change her.
potentially,
You thought you could change her. Like you
but
thought you could
Right.
you
take her
saw
from a
it.
bad bee into a princess. You know
You
what
saw
I'm
it.
saying?
You saw the 6 months, and you just went, "Nah, can't change this. This is not nothing. This is not on me. This is a personal issue that Werner has in his head. I can't do it." To sign him twice, he should have just gone with nobody.
Yeah. Fair play.
yeah,
Fair
yeah,
play.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's all I've got to say. Really, I'm going to finish on that, man. It's getting late now, so
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it, guys. It's been awesome. Ash, it's lovely to share a screen with you.
yeah,
Marlon, for the
same,
first
man.
time, thank you very much.
Likewise.
Thanks
No,
to everybody
no,
in the chat.
no problem. So I know you can be seen. Well, obviously, do you want to let anyone know where they can find you on the socials, or
Oh, I mean,
where you hang about on YouTube?
I typically hang about on everybody else's channels. So I'm on Spurs Diehards Tottenham Till I Die. You can catch me and Adrian on Friday evenings or Friday nights, depending on where you are. It's a 10 o'clock show for US audiences. And then also Spurs Talk Show when Sean Butler's not being hacked. Big up, Sean. Hope you're all right. And also Irish Hotspur. I do pre-games for all of the weekend stuff with Jack and Dave. So you can catch me over on all of their shows. So I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me plug them.
No worries at all. I'm back on Thursday with Last Word. Are you back tomorrow?
Me, we'll do something. We're gonna be doing something. Yeah, something like rivals. You know, the WhatsApp group's mad. But yeah, let me say,
because the Arsenal fans won 7, and they think they're going to win the Champions League now.
yeah, bro. Listen,
Yeah, right.
It's crazy right now.
Oh man, I can't wait till they get slapped up 6-0 at home by PSV now.
Oh, we can dream. We can dream.
or Real Madrid slap up 6.
Yeah, almost back. Yeah, all of that.
They've completely forgot Real Madrid and Atletico are to wait.
No, I'm hearing pray from Madrid, bro. You ain't heard them?
Oh my god, they are.
You haven't
They are
heard
something
them?
else. Bring back
Pray for
West
Madrid.
Ham. West Ham. Well, remember West Ham.
That's all right, man. Don't worry. But as I said, yeah, tomorrow we've got rivals. So yeah, please make sure you tune in. But more importantly, make sure don't be a hater. Like you gotta like the show. If you don't like it, it's like you're not
Stop keeping us a secret. Yeah.
Yeah, like listen, support the boys, support the man. Them get it out there. We don't support each other enough. I don't think that's what I'd say across the community, across the culture. We need to start backing each other. You know what I'm saying? We need to start supporting each other. Real talk. So please,
Absolutely, get them subscriptions. Even if you can't catch every video, like just the algorithms love it. So just subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the Tottenham community.
Yeah, man. That's it. That's all I got to say, man.
Nice one. Big up, boys.
Big up.
Oh, what are you saying for the game? RZ, can we just do a quick prediction? What are you saying, if you don't mind?
Yeah. I said 2-1 to Spurs away from home.
I said 2-1 to Spurs as well.
Yeah. Come on, you Spurs. Time to
My
be positive now. Time to be positive.
My prediction's out tomorrow on Irish Hotspur, so I got to plug them. So you'll see
Oh,
there.
leave us hanging, Marlon. Everybody, you got to
If you want
tune
to see
in.
my
You got to
prediction, go
tune in.
there.
Wow.
And I got to plug them for something.
Big up,
Nice one,
Dable.
Brian.
Big up
But
to all
yeah,
our listeners as well on the
audio as
Spotify.
well.
Yeah,
On
audio
the
links as
Spotify
well.
as well. Yeah.
Shout out, man.
But big up to everyone in the chat tonight. Again, been awesome, been great. And all you silent watchers as well, you've been great too. But yeah, we're back. What, next week? Next week,
Yeah,
you're back
next
tomorrow. And then
Would have played Bournemouth by then.
Oh shit, yeah. Fuck.
So it'll be interesting to see how Slanky what he does, and if Areola loses and everyone's in the mud, like, yeah, man, we'll get Drew back for that.
Yeah, man, let's do it.
I told you.
Told
I told you. Look, what's the
You've got
narrative
a
say
clue.
now? Whoa! I bet we beat them as well. I reckon we'll beat them. I'm gonna say it now. But yeah, cool.
Depends how we do on Thursday. Big up to everyone. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you
Come on, you
Spurs.
Spurs.
Peace.